The reflection in the wine glass showed everything Anaya Thompson needed to see. 3 tables away, partially hidden behind a decorative plant, Brad Collins held up his phone with the camera pointed directly at her. His friends huddled around him, shoulders shaking with barely contained laughter. The expensive restaurant suddenly felt like a cage, the soft lighting like a spotlight exposing her as tonight's entertainment. Anaya's hands trembled slightly as she set down the glass. She'd worn her best dress tonight, a bright red one that she'd saved 3 months to afford. Her natural curls were perfectly styled, her makeup carefully applied. She believed this was real. When Brad had approached her desk at the office last week, showing her a profile of someone who supposedly wanted to meet her, she'd felt a flutter of hope. The profile belonged to a businessman, successful and kind-looking. Brad had said this man specifically asked to meet someone who was deaf, that he appreciated different perspectives and ways of communicating. She should have known better. Brad had never been friendly to her before. Why would he suddenly play matchmaker? The restaurant buzzed with conversations Anaya couldn't hear, but she'd become skilled at reading rooms. The elderly couple to her left was arguing, their faces tense. The family near the window was celebrating something, their smiles genuine. And Brad's table, that table radiated cruelty. She could see it in how they kept glancing her way, in how one woman covered her mouth while her eyes danced with mean amusement. Anaya's phone sat on the table, still showing the last message from Brad. He's running a few minutes late. Don't worry, he's definitely coming. This is going to be perfect. Perfect. The word felt like poison now. She understood the plan. They'd set her up with someone who would either never show up, leaving her alone and humiliated, or worse, someone who would mock her to her face. The cameras would capture every moment of her disappointment, her hurt, her confusion. By Monday morning, everyone at the office would have seen the video. She could already imagine the comments, the barely hidden smirks, the whispers that would follow her through the hallways. She thought about leaving. Every instinct screamed at her to grab her purse and walk out with whatever dignity she still possessed. But something held her in place, a stubborn refusal to let them see her run. If this was a joke, she'd face it head-on. She'd survived worse than Brad Collins and his petty cruelty. Anaya had been deaf since birth, 28 years of navigating a world that often forgot she existed. She'd fought for every opportunity, every achievement, every moment of respect. Her graphic design business was small but growing, built entirely through her own determination and talent. She didn't need pity dates or cruel pranks. She needed the same thing everyone needed, to be seen as a whole person, not a punchline. The waiter approached her table, his lips forming words she'd learned to read. "Can I get you anything while you wait?" She signed her response and he nodded, understanding. He'd been kind when she arrived, making sure she felt comfortable. At least someone in this restaurant saw her as a human being. As the waiter left, Anaya noticed movement near the entrance. A man had just walked in, and the hostess was gesturing toward her table. Her heart sank. This must be him, the final piece of Brad's cruel puzzle. She forced herself to breathe steadily to maintain her composure. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The man approached, and Anaya got her first clear look at him. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and strong features. But what caught her attention was his suit, a bright, bold blue that seemed out of place in the neutral-toned restaurant. He walked with confidence but not arrogance, his expression open and nervous. That detail surprised her. If he was part of the joke, wouldn't he look smug or uncomfortable in a different way? He reached her table and smiled. His hands moved, signing a greeting. The signs were basic, clearly from someone still learning, but they were genuine. "Hello. I'm Julian. Are you Anaya?" She stared at him, caught completely off guard. In all her imagining of how this cruel prank would unfold, she hadn't considered this possibility. She glanced past him toward Brad's table and saw confusion on their faces too. This wasn't what they'd expected either. Anaya's mind raced. Was this man part of the joke or not? His signing suggested real effort, real preparation. But Brad could have coached him, could have set this up to be even more elaborate. The cruelty would be worse if they'd gone this far, made her believe for even a moment that this might be real. Julian was still standing, waiting for her response, his expression shifting from nervous to concerned. He signed again, slower this time. "May I sit?" This was the moment. She could stand up and leave, assume the worst and protect herself. Or she could sit here and find out the truth, risk the humiliation Brad had planned. Her eyes met Julian's, searching for any hint of mockery or deception. All she saw was genuine hope and a touch of anxiety. "Sit," she signed back, making her decision. Have you ever been tricked into something that seemed too good to be true? Have you ever had to decide whether to trust someone when everything told you not to? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you're enjoying this story, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Julian pulled out the chair and sat down, setting a leather portfolio on the table beside him. I'm sorry I'm late, he signed, his movements careful. Traffic was terrible. Anaya watched him closely, still trying to determine his role in whatever was happening. She pulled out her phone and typed, "Did Brad tell you about me?" Julian read the message and nodded, typing his own response. Brad works with my business partner. He said you were an amazing graphic designer and that we might have a lot in common. He suggested we meet. The words seemed sincere, but Anaya had learned long ago that sincerity could be faked. She typed again, "What else did he tell you? That you're deaf and prefer signing or typing. That you love art and design. That you've built your own business from nothing." Julian paused, then added, "He said you deserve to meet someone who would appreciate you." Anaya felt a twist in her chest. If this was a setup, it was cruel in ways she hadn't anticipated. They'd created an entire false narrative, complete with compliments and backstory. She glanced again at Brad's table. They were no longer laughing. Instead, they looked annoyed, impatient, as if their entertainment wasn't delivering as promised. The waiter returned with menus, and Julian immediately pulled out his phone, opening a translation app that also had sign language videos. He was trying so hard, putting in effort that went beyond what any prank would require. But Anaya had learned not to trust easily. She typed, "Before we go any further, I need to know something. Look 3 tables behind you to the left. Do you see those people?" Julian turned, following her direction. She watched his face as he spotted Brad's group. His expression shifted from curious to confused. He turned back to her, typing, "Yes. Why? Do you know them?" He looked again, studying the table more carefully. After a moment he typed, "I recognize Brad. He's the one who set this up. But I don't know the others. What's going on?" Anaya felt a cold certainty settling over her. She typed out the truth, "They've been filming us since I arrived. I think this whole thing is a joke and I'm the punchline." She watched Julian's face as he read her words. The confusion gave way to shock, then anger. He looked back at Brad's table, his jaw tight. When he turned to her again, his eyes were intense with an emotion she couldn't quite name. He typed rapidly, "I swear I had no idea. Brad told me this was a genuine date. He said you and I would connect. I thought." He paused, then continued, "I thought this was real." "Was it?" Anaya typed, her fingers steady despite the emotions churning inside her. "Were you part of the joke?" Julian's response was immediate, "No. Absolutely not. I would never." He stopped, seemingly overwhelmed. He closed his eyes for a moment, then typed again, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were being used like this. That we were both being used." Anaya studied his face, looking for any crack in the facade, any hint of deception. All she saw was genuine distress and growing anger. Either he was an incredibly good actor or he was telling the truth. The question was, which one was it? Julian Pierce had spent 15 years building his company from a small tech startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. He'd negotiated with corporate giants, navigated hostile takeovers, and made decisions that affected thousands of employees. None of that had prepared him for the sick feeling in his stomach as he understood what was happening. Someone had used him to hurt another person. He looked at Anaya, really looked at her, and saw past the beautiful red dress and carefully styled appearance to the guarded expression in her eyes. She was braced for betrayal, waiting for him to reveal his true colors. He hated that someone had put that look on her face. Julian pulled out his phone and typed, "I need you to know something. I'm going to handle this, but first I need to know if you want me to leave. If my being here makes this worse for you, I'll go right now. But if you'll let me stay, I'd like to fix this." Anaya read his message twice. Her hands moved to respond and sign, then she seemed to think better of it and typed instead, "How do you plan to fix it?" "First, I'm going to make sure that video never sees the light of day," Julian typed. "Then I'm going to deal with Brad. After that, if you're willing, I'd like to start this evening over properly. No tricks, no jokes. Just 2 people having dinner." "You make it sound simple," Anaya typed. "The solution is simple. The situation is unforgivable." Julian stood up, his height suddenly imposing. The bright blue suit that had seemed almost playful before now looked like armor. He walked directly to Brad's table, aware that every eye in the restaurant was probably watching him. He didn't care. Brad looked up as Julian approached, his smirk faltering slightly. The others at the table shifted uncomfortably, their phones quickly disappearing under the table or into pockets. "Julian," Brad said, his voice carrying false cheer. "I didn't realize you'd actually show up." "Give me your phones," Julian said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "All of you. Right now." "What? Why would we do that?" Brad laughed, but it sounded nervous. "Because if you don't, I'll have my legal team file harassment charges before sunrise tomorrow. I'll tie all of you up in lawsuits so expensive you'll be paying lawyers for the next decade." Julian leaned forward slightly. "And Brad, I'll make sure every business in this city knows what kind of person you are. Your career will be over before Monday morning." "You're overreacting," Brad said, but his face had gone pale. "It was just a joke, man. We were just having some fun." "Fun," Julian repeated, his voice flat. "You think humiliating someone is fun? You think setting up an innocent woman to be mocked is entertainment?" He straightened. "Phones? No. Or I start making calls." The woman next to Brad spoke up, her voice small. "It was Brad's idea. We were just filming." "I don't care whose idea it was," Julian said. "You all participated." "Phones." One by one they handed over their devices. Julian collected them, then typed a quick message on his own phone. Within minutes, a man in a dark suit appeared at the table, someone from Julian's security team who'd been waiting outside. Julian handed him the phones. "Delete every video from tonight. Every photo. Every message about this dinner. Then return these to them." The security guard nodded and walked away with the phones. Julian turned back to Brad. "You told me this was a legitimate date. You said Anaya was someone special, someone I should meet. At least that part was true, though not in the way you meant it." "Look, Julian, I can explain," Brad started. "Don't. I don't want to hear your excuses." Julian pulled out his own phone and typed quickly. "I'm sending an email right now to your supervisor and HR department. You're going to face consequences for this." "You can't do that," Brad said, anger creeping into his voice. "You don't even work at our company." "No, but I own 12% of it. I'm a major investor. Which means I absolutely can do that." Julian pocketed his phone. "I suggest you leave this restaurant immediately. And if I ever hear that you've contacted Anaya again for any reason, you'll regret it." Brad's face had gone from pale to red. "This is ridiculous. She's nobody. She's just a deaf girl who works in the back office doing basic design work." The words were barely out of Brad's mouth when Julian felt his hands curl into fists. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. Violence would only make things worse, and more importantly, it wasn't what Anaya needed right now. "Get out," Julian said quietly. "All of you. Get out of this restaurant right now." The manager had appeared at some point during the confrontation. "Is there a problem here, Mr. Pierce?" "These people were harassing another guest," Julian said. "I'd appreciate it if you'd escort them out." The manager nodded briskly. "Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Brad stood, his chair scraping loudly. He grabbed his coat and glared at Julian. "You're going to regret this." "The only thing I regret is that I ever trusted your judgment," Julian replied. The group left, Brad throwing one last poisonous look over his shoulder. Julian watched them go, making sure they were truly gone before returning to Anaya's table. His security guard met him halfway, returning the phones. "Everything's been deleted, sir. I've also documented what was on there in case you need it for legal purposes." "Thank you." Julian took the phones and handed them to the manager. "Can you return these to those people once they're outside?" The manager agreed, and Julian finally returned to where Anaya sat. She'd been watching everything, her expression unreadable. He sat down across from her, suddenly feeling exhausted. He typed, "I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry any of this happened." Anaya's fingers moved across her phone screen. "You didn't have to do all that." "Yes, I did. What they did was wrong. What Brad did was inexcusable." Julian paused, then typed, "I meant what I said before. If you want me to leave, I will. But if you're willing to give this evening a chance, a real chance, I'd really like to stay." Anaya looked at him for a long moment. Her fingers hovered over her phone, then she typed, "Why? Why what? Why do you care? You don't know me. You could have just left and forgotten about all of this." Julian considered his response carefully. "Because the moment Brad described you, the moment he showed me your design portfolio, I was interested. I thought maybe I'd found someone genuine, someone who cared about their work the way I care about mine. When I realized this was a setup, I was angry for both of us. But mostly, He stopped, searching for the right words. Mostly because no one deserves to be treated the way you were treated tonight. And walking away would have made me just as bad as them. Anaya read his words, her expression softening slightly. She typed, "You learned sign language for tonight." "I did. Not very well, but I tried. I've been working with deaf communities through my company's accessibility initiatives. I wanted to be able to communicate properly. That's more effort than most people make. It's the bare minimum of respect," Julian typed. "You shouldn't have to carry the full burden of communication. That's not fair." For the first time since he'd arrived, Anaya smiled. It was small, hesitant, but genuine. She typed, "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Maybe someone who'd look at me and see a disability first, a person second. Or someone who'd think they were doing me a favor by showing up." Her fingers paused, then continued, "Or someone who was part of the joke. I see a talented designer wearing a beautiful red dress who deserves a much better evening than this one started out to be," Julian typed. "And I hope I can help make the rest of tonight better." Anaya studied him again, that guarded expression still present but softening. Finally she typed, "Okay. Let's start over. Hi, I'm Anaya Thompson." Julian felt relief wash through him. He signed his response this time, slow and careful. "Hi, I'm Julian Pierce. It's nice to meet you." The waiter approached cautiously, clearly aware that something had happened but professional enough not to pry. Julian ordered wine for himself and looked at Anaya questioningly. She pointed to her menu indicating a cocktail. The waiter nodded and left. "So," Julian typed, "tell me about your work. Brad showed me some of your designs and I was genuinely impressed." Anaya's face lit up when she read the question. She typed rapidly, "I run a small graphic design business. Mostly logos and branding for local companies. I've been building it for 3 years now. That must be challenging running your own business." "It is. But it's worth it. I get to be my own boss, choose my own clients, create work I actually care about." She paused, then added, "Though I'd be lying if I said it was easy. Getting clients is hard. A lot of people assume I can't do the job because I'm deaf." "That's their loss," Julian typed. "The designs I saw were excellent. You have a real gift for understanding what a brand needs." "Thank you." Anaya's smile was more confident now. "What about you? Brad said you're some kind of businessman, but he was vague about the details." Julian hesitated. This was always the tricky part. The moment people learned about his wealth, everything changed. They either wanted something from him or they saw him as nothing but a bank account. But Anaya had asked directly and she deserved honesty. He typed, "I own a tech company. We develop software for accessibility and communication. Started it right out of college with my best friend. We wanted to create tools that would help people connect better." "That's beautiful," Anaya typed. "What made you choose that field?" "My younger sister is deaf," Julian typed, the words coming easily. "Growing up, I watched her struggle with systems that weren't built for her. I wanted to change that. I wanted to create technology that saw people like her as the default, not the exception." Anaya's expression changed completely. The guardedness melted away, replaced by something warmer. She typed, "Is your sister the one who taught you sign language?" "She started teaching me when we were kids. I've been practicing more seriously lately. She says my grammar is terrible, but I'm getting better." "Your grammar is fine," Anaya typed. "Better than most hearing people I meet. At least you're trying." Their drinks arrived and they toasted carefully. The cocktail glass caught the light, and Julian noticed Anaya's hands, graceful and expressive even in stillness. These were hands that created beautiful things, that communicated entire worlds. They talked through dinner, fingers flying across phone screens, occasionally switching to sign when words came easier that way. Julian learned that Anaya had graduated top of her class in design school, that she loved painting in her free time, that her dream was to open a community center where deaf artists and designers could work together and teach others. He told her about his sister, about his company, about how tired he was of people who only saw his money. He confessed that Brad's promise of a genuine connection had been appealing precisely because it seemed too unlikely to be a setup. "I should have known better," Julian typed. "Brad's always been slimy. But my business partner vouched for him, said he was trying to be helpful. We both wanted to believe it could be real," Anaya typed back. "That's not a weakness. That's hope." The restaurant around them continued its normal rhythm, but their table felt separate, insulated. Julian found himself laughing at Anaya's stories about difficult clients, sharing his own tales of business disasters. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, in a way he hadn't experienced in years. As dessert arrived, Anaya typed, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you walked in tonight, before you knew about the prank, what were you hoping for?" Julian thought about his answer. "Honestly? I was hoping to meet someone who didn't know me as Julian Pierce, billionaire, first. Someone who might see just Julian. The guy who still eats cereal for dinner sometimes and watches too many cooking shows and wants to do something meaningful with his life beyond just making money. And now? What are you hoping for now?" He typed slowly, making sure his words were clear. "Now I'm hoping this isn't the last time we have dinner together. I'm hoping you'll give me a chance to prove that tonight, despite how it started, could be the beginning of something real." Anaya set down her phone and signed her response, her movements fluid and certain. "I'd like that too." The next morning, Anaya woke to sunlight streaming through her apartment windows and the memory of Julian's smile as they'd said goodnight. For a few peaceful moments, she let herself feel the warmth of that memory, the surprising connection they'd found despite the terrible beginning. Then reality crashed back in. She had to go to work. She had to face Brad Collins and whoever else had been at that table. She had to walk through an office where everyone might know what had happened, where the humiliation she'd feared might still be waiting. Anaya sat up in bed, her small studio apartment suddenly feeling cramped. She'd worked hard to make this space her own, filling it with her artwork and designs, but this morning it felt like a fortress she didn't want to leave. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "Good morning. I hope you slept well. I wanted to let you know that I've spoken to your company's HR department. Brad has been suspended pending an investigation. You won't have to deal with him today." Anaya read the message 3 times. Part of her felt relief, but another part felt strange about Julian intervening in her workplace. She typed back, "Thank you, but you didn't have to do that. I can handle Brad." His response came quickly, "I know you can. But you shouldn't have to. What he did was harassment and your company needs to know about it. Plus, he used my name and reputation to set up the prank. I have every right to file a complaint too." She couldn't argue with that logic even if it still felt odd having someone fight her battles. She'd been independent for so long, relying only on herself, that accepting help felt uncomfortable. But maybe that was something she needed to learn. Anaya got ready for work, choosing a bright green blouse that made her feel confident. As she applied her makeup, she thought about the previous night. Julian had been surprising. He'd defended her without being asked, had shown genuine interest in her work, had made her laugh. But a small voice in her head warned her to be careful. Rich men could be charming when they wanted something. What could Julian possibly want from her, though? The question followed her through her morning commute on the bus. She watched the city roll past, people heading to their own jobs, their own lives. She thought about Julian's confession that he wanted someone to see him as just Julian, not as a billionaire. She understood that desire more than he might realize. How many times had people looked at her and seen only her deafness, not her talent or personality? At her office building, Anaya hesitated before entering. This was a small marketing firm where she worked part-time while building her design business. It paid the bills while she pursued her dream. She'd always kept her head down, done good work, and avoided office drama. Brad had been the exception, always finding small ways to make her feel excluded or incompetent. The office was on the 3rd floor. As Anaya walked down the hallway, she felt eyes on her. Some coworkers looked away quickly when she glanced at them. Others offered small, sympathetic smiles. One woman, Teresa from accounting, signed a quick, "Good morning," as Anaya passed her desk. So people knew. The story had spread. Anaya reached her desk in the corner of the design department. It was a small space, but she'd made it comfortable with plants and inspirational artwork. She set down her bag and powered on her computer, trying to ignore the whispers she could see but not hear. A tap on her shoulder made her turn. Her supervisor, Michelle Rodriguez, stood there with a concerned expression. She gestured toward the conference room and Anaya followed her. Inside the conference room, Michelle closed the door and sat down across from Anaya. She began typing on her phone to communicate, "I heard about what happened last night. I'm so sorry. If I'd known Brad was planning something like this, I would have stopped it immediately." Anaya typed back, "It's not your fault. I just want to move past it and do my work." "I understand. But I need you to know that the company takes this seriously. Brad's been suspended while we investigate. We're also implementing new harassment training for all employees." Michelle paused, then continued typing. "Mr. Pierce called our CO this morning. He was very clear about what happened and what he expects our response to be." There was again. Julian intervening on her behalf. Anaya typed, "He seems to have taken this very personally. He should." Brad used Mr. Pierce's name and reputation to set up a cruel prank. That's not something any professional would take lightly. Michelle smiled. "Between you and me, I'm glad someone with his resources is on your side. Brad has gotten away with too much for too long." After the meeting, Anaya returned to her desk and tried to focus on work. She had 3 client projects due by the end of the week, and sitting around feeling sorry for herself wouldn't get them done. She opened her design software and lost herself in color palettes and typography choices. At lunch, her phone buzzed again. "Julian, I hope your morning is going okay. I know I might have overstepped by calling your company. If I made things worse, I apologize." Anaya smiled despite herself. He was trying so hard to do the right thing. She typed, "You didn't make things worse. Everyone knows anyway. At least this way something is being done about it." "Good. I've been worried all morning that I'd messed up somehow." A pause, then another message. "Would you like to have dinner again? Nothing fancy, just food and conversation. Maybe tomorrow night?" Her fingers hovered over the phone. This was the moment where she should be cautious, where she should protect herself. But she thought about Julian's earnest attempts at signing, his anger on her behalf, the easy way they talked about art and dreams. She typed, "Yes. I'd like that." "Great. I'll pick you up at 7? I'll meet you there. Just tell me where." There was a pause before his next message. "You don't trust me enough yet to let me know where you live." "I get that. How about that Italian place on 5th Street? The one with the blue awning?" "I know it. See you tomorrow at 7. Anaya set down her phone, feeling a flutter of nervousness and anticipation. She was really doing this. She was giving Julian Pierce, Billionaire, a second chance. Or maybe it was a first real chance, since last night had been built on deception. The afternoon passed quickly. Anaya finished 2 of her client projects and made good progress on the 3rd. As the workday ended, Teresa stopped by her desk. "Hey," Teresa signed. She was one of the few co-workers who knew sign language, having learned it to communicate with her nephew. "Are you doing okay? This whole Brad thing is crazy." "I'm fine," Anaya signed back. "Just ready to forget about it. I heard you had dinner with Julian Pierce." "The Julian Pierce." Teresa's eyes were wide with curiosity. "What was that like?" "It was nice." "He's nice." "Nice?" "Anaya, the man is a billionaire. He's on magazine covers. He's not just nice." Anaya smiled. "He was to me. That's all that matters." Teresa studied her face. "You like him." "I barely know him." "But you like him. I can tell." Teresa grinned. "This is so exciting. You have to tell me everything." "There's nothing to tell yet. We had one dinner. And you're having another one tomorrow," Teresa said, having clearly read Anaya's text from across the office. "Sorry, I saw the notification on your screen. I wasn't trying to spy." Anaya laughed. "It's fine. Yes, we're having dinner tomorrow. But it's just dinner. I'm not getting carried away with fantasies." "Why not?" "Girl, you deserve someone who treats you well. And from what I heard, Julian Pierce went full protective mode on Brad. That's swoon-worthy. Or it's just him protecting his own reputation." "You don't really believe that," Teresa said. "I saw your face when you were texting him. You're already falling for this guy." "I'm not falling for anyone. I'm just interested. Cautiously interested." Teresa signed something that roughly translated to "whatever you say," with heavy skepticism, then waved goodbye as she headed home. Anaya packed up her things and headed for the bus stop. The evening was cool, autumn settling into the city. She loved this time of year, when the light turned golden and the air carried a hint of coming winter. As she waited for her bus, she thought about Teresa's words. Was she falling for Julian? It was too soon to know. But she couldn't deny the way her heart had lifted when she'd seen his morning text, or the anticipation she felt about tomorrow's dinner. Maybe Teresa was right. Maybe she was already in deeper than she wanted to admit. The bus arrived and Anaya found a seat by the window. As the city passed by, she made herself a promise. She'd give this thing with Julian a real chance. She'd be open and honest and let herself hope. But she'd also be smart. She'd protect her heart while still being brave enough to risk it. If Julian turned out to be as genuine as he seemed, it would be worth it. And if he didn't, at least she'd know she'd tried. Her phone buzzed one more time. "Julian again. I forgot to mention, I have something for you. Nothing big, just something I think you'll appreciate. I'll bring it tomorrow." Anaya frowned at the message. She typed, "You don't need to bring me anything." "I know. But I want to." Trust me, it's not expensive or weird. Just meaningful. I hope. She could have argued, but something in his message made her curious. She typed, "Okay. See you tomorrow." As the bus carried her home, Anaya wondered what Julian considered meaningful. She'd find out soon enough. For now, she let herself smile at the thought of seeing him again, of having another evening of easy conversation and surprising connection. Maybe, just maybe, something good was coming out of Brad's cruel joke after all. Julian Pierce sat in his office on the 42nd floor of the Pierce Tower, staring at the box on his desk. Inside was a gift he'd stayed up half the night creating, and now he was second-guessing himself. Was it too much? Too personal? Too weird? His assistant, Grace Park, knocked on his glass door and entered. "Your 2 o'clock is here," she signed and spoke simultaneously. Grace was deaf and had been his assistant for 5 years. She was the one who'd helped him refine his signing skills. "Thanks, Grace. Give me 5 minutes?" She nodded and left. Julian looked at the box again. Inside was a custom-designed tablet stylus with Anaya's initials engraved on it, along with a subscription to a professional design software suite that he knew she'd been wanting but couldn't afford. He'd found out about the software from carefully reading her blog posts about design struggles. Was it too much? Maybe. But he'd been genuine when he said it wasn't about the money. The stylus was something he'd use himself, a tool for work. The software would help her business grow. He wasn't trying to buy her affection. He was trying to support her dreams. At least that's what he told himself. The meeting with his 2 o'clock took longer than expected. By the time Julian got back to thinking about dinner plans, it was almost 4. He needed to finalize the reservation, make sure the restaurant knew about Anaya's needs, and figure out what he was going to wear. The bright blue suit had worked last time, but maybe tonight called for something different. Green perhaps. Anaya had mentioned liking bold colors. His phone rang. His business partner, Tom Richardson, calling from the West Coast. Julian answered, putting it on speaker. "We have a problem," Tom said without preamble. "Brad Collins is threatening to sue both of us for defamation and interference with his employment." Julian felt his jaw tighten. "On what grounds?" "He claims you falsely accused him of harassment and used your influence to get him suspended. He's saying the whole thing at the restaurant was a misunderstanding, that Anaya misread the situation." "That's a lie." "I know. But he's hired a lawyer and they're making noise." Tom sighed. "Look, I know Brad screwed up. But the lawsuit could get messy. Maybe we should try to smooth things over, get him to drop it." "No. Julian, think about this. Legal battles are expensive and time-consuming. Is it really worth it over one bad date?" "It wasn't a bad date, Tom. It was calculated harassment. And yes, it's worth it." Julian stood and walked to his office window, looking out over the city. Brad set up an innocent woman to be humiliated for entertainment. He filmed her without consent. He used my name and reputation to make it happen. I'm not smoothing anything over. He could drag this out for months. Let him. I have an entire legal team on retainer. What does he have? Tom was quiet for a moment. "You really care about this girl, don't you? Her name is Anaya. And yes, I care about making sure she's not hurt again." "That's not what I meant. I mean, you care about her personally." Julian didn't answer immediately. Did he care about Anaya personally? He'd known her for one evening. But he couldn't stop thinking about her smile when she talked about design, her determination to build something meaningful, the way she'd been brave enough to stay at that restaurant even when she knew it was a setup. "I care about doing the right thing," Julian finally said. "Whether or not I have personal feelings is irrelevant. It's very relevant if Brad's lawyer uses it against you. They could claim you're pursuing this out of romantic interest, not legitimate business concerns. Then they'd be right about one thing," Julian said. "I am interested in Anaya. But that doesn't change the fact that what Brad did was wrong and needs consequences." Tom sighed again. "Okay, I'll support you on this. But be careful, Julian. Mixing business and personal feelings is risky." After the call ended, Julian sat back down and opened his laptop. He pulled up the documentation from the restaurant incident, the security guard's report, the statements from the restaurant manager and staff, the deleted videos that had been preserved as evidence. Everything pointed to clear harassment. Let Brad try to sue. Julian had truth on his side. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister, Vanessa. "Mom told me you're dating someone. When do I get to meet her?" Julian typed back, "It's been one date, V, don't get ahead of yourself. One date where you went full knight in shining armor mode from what I heard. That's serious for you. How did you even hear about it?" "Grace told me." She's worried you're going to scare this girl off by being too intense. Julian grimaced. Am I being too intense? Probably. But in a sweet way. Just let her come to you sometimes, okay? Not everyone needs rescuing. Noted. And Julian? I'm proud of you for standing up to that Brad guy. What he did was disgusting. Thanks, V. By the time Julian left work, he'd confirmed the dinner reservation, selected a dark green suit from his closet at home, and wrapped the gift box in simple brown paper. He'd also received another threatening message from Brad's lawyer, which he'd forwarded to his own legal team with instructions to handle it aggressively. At 6:30, Julian was dressed and ready. He looked at himself in the mirror, adjusting his tie. The green suit looked good, professional but not stuffy. He grabbed the gift box and his keys. The restaurant was 15 minutes away. Julian arrived early and checked with the staff to make sure everything was set. He'd requested a quiet table with good lighting so Anaya could easily read lips if needed. The manager assured him everything was ready. At 5 minutes to 7, Julian stood outside the restaurant, nerves fluttering in his stomach like he was a teenager again. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but the thought of Anaya walking up any moment had him fidgeting with his watch. Then he saw her. She was wearing a bright maroon dress that brought out the warmth in her skin tone. Her hair was different tonight, pulled back in a way that showed off her face. She walked with confidence, her head high, and Julian felt his breath catch. Anaya spotted him and smiled. She signed hello and he signed back, adding, "You look beautiful." She typed on her phone, "You clean up pretty well yourself. I like the green." "I thought I'd match your risk-taking fashion sense," he typed back. They went inside together and the hostess led them to their table. It was tucked in a corner with soft overhead lighting and a small candle on the table. Perfect for conversation. After they'd ordered drinks, Julian pulled out the wrapped box. "I brought you something. I hope you don't mind." Anaya looked at the box warily. She typed, "Julian, you really didn't need to do this." "I know. But I wanted to. Please just open it." She unwrapped the box carefully, lifting the lid to reveal the stylus and the software card. Her eyes widened as she picked up the stylus, examining the engraving. She typed, "This is too much. It's a tool for your work. Think of it as an investment in your talent." "Julian?" She set down the stylus and typed rapidly, "I can't accept this. It's too expensive, too personal. We barely know each other. You can accept it, and we're getting to know each other now. That's the whole point of dating, right?" He typed carefully, "Anaya, I'm not trying to buy your affection. I'm trying to support your dreams. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot like a rich man throwing money at a problem." The words stung, but Julian understood where they came from. He typed, "What problem am I throwing money at?" "Me. My life. My struggles. I don't see you as a problem. I see you as someone talented who deserves better tools to do her work. If I'd met a male designer with the same portfolio, I'd do the same thing." Anaya studied him, her expression unreadable. She typed, "Would you? Or would you just see him as a business opportunity, not a charity case?" "You're not a charity case," Julian typed firmly. "You're a potential business partner. I told you my company focuses on accessibility and communication. Your design work aligns perfectly with our brand values. I'd like to offer you contract work at industry standard rates, creating materials for our new products." He watched her read his words, saw the moment her expression changed from defensive to surprised. She typed, "You want to hire me?" "Yes, officially. With a contract and everything. The stylus and software are signing bonuses, not gifts." Julian smiled. "Although I was going to offer them as gifts if the business angle didn't work." Anaya laughed, the tension breaking. She typed, "You're sneaky. I'm practical. I need a designer. You need clients. This benefits both of us. And the fact that you're attracted to me? That doesn't complicate things." Julian appreciated her directness. He typed, "Maybe it does. But I think we can be professional about business and still explore whatever this is between us personally. Unless you'd rather not mix the two." "I don't know. I've never dated a client before. I've never hired someone I was interested in dating. We'd be figuring it out together." Their drinks arrived, giving Anaya time to think. She sipped her wine slowly, her eyes on the stylus still sitting in the box. Finally she typed, "Okay. I'll accept the job. But I want to be clear. I'm going to do excellent work because that's who I am, not because we're dating. And if at any point you're unhappy with my designs, you tell me professionally. No special treatment." Agreed. And if this, she gestured between them, doesn't work out romantically, I still keep the contract. Absolutely. The business arrangement is separate. Then we have a deal. Anaya picked up the stylus and examined it more closely, a smile playing at her lips. This really is beautiful. Thank you. You're welcome. My sister helped me choose it. She has better taste than I do. Your sister sounds smart. She is. She wants to meet you, by the way. I told her it was too soon, but she's persistent. Anaya's eyes widened. You told your family about me? Julian realized his mistake too late. He typed quickly, just my sister. And only because she's deaf too and she's interested in anyone I meet from the community. It's not a big deal. It feels like a big deal. Is that bad? Anaya thought for a moment, then typed, no. Just, unexpected. I guess I didn't think I'd be meeting the family material. You're definitely meeting the family material. But only when you're ready. No pressure. They ordered dinner and the conversation shifted to easier topics. Anaya told him about her favorite art movements, and Julian shared stories from his company's early days. They laughed over menu choices and debated the merits of different design software. Halfway through the meal, Anaya's phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, and typed, "It's my boss. I should take this." Julian nodded, and Anaya stepped away to the restaurant's entrance. Through the window he could see her on a video call, signing rapidly. Her expression was distressed. After several minutes she returned to the table. She typed, "I need to leave. There's a problem at work." What kind of problem? Brad showed up at the office. He's demanding to collect his things and he's causing a scene. Michelle asked if I could come in because he's saying things about me, claiming I lied about what happened. Julian felt anger surge through him. He typed, "I'm coming with you. You don't need to do that." "Yes, I do. Brad's behavior is escalating, and I'm not letting you walk into that situation alone." Anaya looked like she might argue, but then she nodded. They paid the check quickly and headed outside. Julian's car was in valet parking, and within minutes they were driving toward Anaya's office building. The drive took 20 minutes. Julian could see Anaya's tension in how she held herself, in the tight grip she had on her phone. He wanted to reach over and take her hand to offer comfort, but he kept both hands on the wheel. When they arrived, the office building's lobby was bright with overhead lights. They could see through the glass doors that a small crowd had gathered near the elevators. Julian and Anaya entered together. Brad was there, shouting at Michelle and two security guards. He was red-faced and gesturing wildly. When he saw Anaya, his expression twisted into something ugly. "There she is," Brad said loudly. "The liar who cost me my job." Anaya stood her ground, but Julian stepped slightly in front of her. He signed as he spoke so she could understand. "Brad, you need to leave. Now." "Oh look, the knight in shining armor. How much are you paying her, Julian? What's your rate for playing the victim?" "That's enough," one of the security guards said. "Sir, you need to collect your belongings and leave immediately or we'll call the police." "I'm not going anywhere until she admits she made the whole thing up. There was no prank. She's just looking for attention and a payout from some rich guy." Julian felt his control slipping. Every instinct wanted to physically remove Brad from the building, but he forced himself to stay calm. He pulled out his phone and typed quickly, then showed the screen to Anaya. She read it and nodded. Julian turned the phone toward Brad and the others. On the screen was the video file his security guard had documented, the one showing Brad and his friends clearly filming Anaya before Julian arrived at the restaurant. "This is evidence of your harassment," Julian said clearly. "My legal team has copies. The restaurant has copies. If you continue this behavior, I'll make sure every single file is sent to the police." Brad's face went from red to pale. "You're bluffing. Try me." Julian's voice was steel. "I've already filed complaints with your company and with mine. I can add stalking and harassment charges if you don't leave right now." The security guards moved closer to Brad. Michelle stepped forward and signed as she spoke for Anaya's benefit. "Brad, you have 1 minute to leave this building. Your personal belongings have been boxed and will be mailed to you. You're not welcome here." For a moment, Brad looked like he might continue arguing. Then he seemed to deflate. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, but not before throwing one last hateful look at Anaya. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," Julian replied. "Unless you want to make it much worse for yourself." Brad left, slamming through the glass doors. The security guards followed to make sure he actually departed. Michelle let out a long breath and turned to Anaya. "I'm so sorry you had to deal with that," she signed. He shouldn't have been allowed past the lobby. Anaya signed back, "It's not your fault. Thank you for calling me." Michelle looked at Julian. "And thank you for coming. Your presence definitely helped de-escalate things." Julian nodded. After Michelle left, he and Anaya stood in the lobby, the adrenaline slowly wearing off. Anaya was shaking slightly, and Julian gently guided her to a bench near the windows. "Are you okay?" he signed. She nodded, then shook her head, then shrugged. Her hands moved. "I don't know. That was scary. He's gone now. And if he comes back, the police will be involved. Why is he doing this? Why can't he just accept that he was wrong and move on?" Julian sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. He signed, "Because people like Brad don't think they're ever wrong. They think the world owes them something, and when they don't get it, they lash out. I just wanted to do my job and live my life. I didn't ask for any of this." "I know. None of this is your fault." They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Anaya signed, "Thank you for being here. I know I said I could handle Brad, but I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone." "You never have to do anything alone," Julian signed. "Not if you don't want to." Anaya looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. She signed, "You really meant it, didn't you? When you said you'd protect me?" "Yes. And I'll keep meaning it for as long as you'll let me." She leaned against him just slightly, a gesture of trust. Julian wrapped an arm around her shoulders, holding her gently. They sat like that until Anaya's shaking stopped and her breathing evened out. "Come on," Julian finally signed. "Let me drive you home. We can finish our dinner another time." Anaya nodded and stood. As they walked to his car, Julian's phone buzzed with a message from his legal team. "Brad Collins has dropped his lawsuit. His lawyer advised him that the evidence was too strong against him." Julian showed the message to Anaya. She read it and a small smile appeared on her face. She typed, "Does this mean it's really over?" "It means Brad's learned that actions have consequences. And yes, it's over." In the car, driving through the city streets, Julian kept glancing over at Anaya. She was looking out the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. He wanted to know what she was thinking, wanted to make sure she was truly okay. When they reached her apartment building, Anaya hesitated before getting out. She typed, "Do you want to come up for coffee? Nothing dramatic, just, I'd like some company." Julian felt his heart rate increase. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." They went up to her third-floor apartment, a cozy studio that was exactly what Julian expected, filled with artwork, design books, and splashes of bright color. Anaya made coffee and they sat on her small couch, knees almost touching. "This is nice," Julian typed. "Your space feels like you." "Thank you. It's small but it's mine. That's important." Anaya sipped her coffee, then set it down and typed, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Anything." "Why me? You could date anyone. Why are you interested in someone with my complications?" Julian took a moment to formulate his response. He typed, "I don't see complications. I see a talented, brave, beautiful woman who makes me want to be better. When I'm with you, I don't think about business deals or profit margins or the next big thing. I think about art and hope and possibilities. You make me remember why I started my company in the first place." Anaya's eyes glistened. She typed, "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. It's just the truth." They talked for another hour, the conversation ranging from serious to playful. Julian learned that Anaya loved rainy days, that she'd once painted a mural in a children's hospital, that her favorite color was actually purple but she wore red and green because they made her feel powerful. When Julian finally stood to leave, Anaya walked him to the door. Before he left, she signed, "Same time next week? For dinner? I'd love that. No work talk. No crisis management. Just us." "Just us," Julian agreed. He wanted to kiss her. The thought was sudden and overwhelming. But he held back, sensing that Anaya needed time, needed to process everything that had happened. Instead he signed, "Good night, Anaya." "Good night, Julian." As he drove home, Julian felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Not the calculated optimism of business projections, but real, genuine hope for the future. Hope that this brave, beautiful woman might give him a chance to prove he was worth her trust. And if Brad Collins tried anything else, Julian would make sure the man regretted it. Some battles were worth fighting, and Anaya was definitely worth protecting. The morning after Brad's confrontation at the office, Anaya woke to find her phone flooded with messages. Word had spread through the company about what happened, and suddenly everyone wanted to check on her, offer support, or share their own stories about Brad's behavior. Teresa texted, "Are you okay? I heard Brad went crazy last night. Please tell me Julian was there being all protective and heroic." Anaya smiled despite her exhaustion. She texted back, "He was there. And yes, he was protective. I'll tell you everything at work." But as she got ready for the day, Anaya found herself thinking less about Brad and more about the hours she'd spent with Julian in her apartment. The conversation had felt effortless, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with physical attraction and everything to do with genuine connection. She told him things she rarely shared with anyone. About her parents who died in a car accident when she was 22, leaving her completely alone. About her struggles to get through design school while working 3 part-time jobs. About the dream she'd had since childhood of creating a space where deaf artists could gather, learn, and create together. Julian had listened to everything, his eyes never leaving hers. He'd shared his own stories too. About building his company from nothing, about the pressure of success, about feeling isolated even when surrounded by people. They'd been honest with each other in a way that felt rare and precious. At work, Anaya found her desk decorated with flowers and supportive notes from coworkers. Even people she barely knew had left kind messages. Michelle stopped by mid-morning with news. "Brad's been terminated," she signed. HR completed their investigation and found multiple instances of harassment, not just toward you but others too. Several people came forward after hearing what happened. Anaya felt relieved but also sad. She typed, "I never wanted him to lose his job. I just wanted him to stop." "I know. But some people need to face real consequences before they change. Maybe this will be his wake-up call." After Michelle left, Teresa pulled her chair over to Anaya's desk. "Okay, spill everything. Don't leave out any details." Anaya laughed and told her about the dinner that got interrupted, about Brad's meltdown, about Julian's calm but firm handling of the situation. She left out the part about sitting in her apartment sharing coffee and dreams. That felt too private, too new to share yet. "He gave you a job?" Teresa's eyes were wide. "Anaya, that's huge. His company is major." "I know. I'm trying not to think about how big it is or I'll panic." "Are you worried about mixing business and personal?" Anaya nodded. "What if it doesn't work out between us? What if I mess up the design work? What if he only hired me because he feels sorry for me?" "Stop," Teresa said firmly. "You're an incredible designer. He hired you because you're talented, not because he pities you. And as for the personal stuff, you'll figure it out. That's what dating is for. We've only had one real dinner. Less than one actually, since last night got cut short. You've also had him fight off a harasser for you twice, been to your apartment, shared deep conversations. That's more than most people do in a month of dating." Teresa had a point. Things with Julian were moving fast, but they also felt right. Natural. Like they'd been moving toward each other from different directions and finally found the intersection. Anaya's phone buzzed. "Julian, good morning. How are you feeling after last night?" She typed back, "Better? Brad got fired. I heard. My business partner called this morning to tell me. He thinks we overreacted." "Do you think so?" "No. I think Brad got exactly what he deserved." "How are you really feeling though?" "Last night was intense." Anaya appreciated that he kept asking, kept checking in. She typed, "Honestly? I'm relieved it's over. And grateful you were there. Always. Listen, I have a proposal for you. Non-work related." "I'm listening." "My sister wants to meet you. She's having a small gathering at her place this Saturday. Just family and a few friends. Very casual. Would you like to come?" Anaya stared at the message. Meeting his family. That was a big step, maybe too big. But Julian had met her crisis, had been there for her worst moments. Maybe it was only fair that she met the people important to him. She typed, "What should I bring?" "Just yourself. And maybe your appetite. Vanessa cooks way too much food." "I'd love to come." "Great. I'll pick you up at 2 on Saturday?" "I'll meet you there. Send me the address." There was a pause, then, "You still don't trust me with your address." "It's not about trust. It's about independence. I like meeting people places." "Fair enough. See you Saturday." The rest of the week passed in a blur of work. Anaya threw herself into the designs for Julian's company, determined to prove she deserved the contract. She created 3 different logo concepts, each one better than the last. She designed brochures, website mock-ups, and promotional materials that emphasized accessibility without being condescending about it. By Friday afternoon, she had a presentation ready. Julian had scheduled a video meeting to review her work, keeping things professional and separate from their personal relationship. When they connected via video call, Julian's face filled her screen. He was in his office, wearing a navy suit, looking every bit the successful businessman. Anaya felt a flutter of nerves. She shared her screen and walked him through the designs, explaining her choices and reasoning. Julian watched intently, occasionally asking questions or requesting small changes. When she finished, he sat back in his chair. He typed, "These are exceptional. Better than anything my previous designers created. You really understand our mission. Thank you. I researched your company thoroughly and talked to some people in the deaf community about what they'd want to see from a tech company. That initiative shows. I'm approving all 3 logo concepts. Let's test them with focus groups and see which resonates most." They discussed timelines and next steps, keeping everything professional. But at the end of the call, Julian's expression softened. He typed, "I'm looking forward to Saturday." "Me too. And a little nervous." "Don't be. My family is going to love you." After the call ended, Anaya sat back and allowed herself a moment of pride. She'd done excellent work and Julian had recognized it professionally. Whatever happened between them personally, she'd earned this contract through talent, not charm. Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather. Anaya changed outfits 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a bright blue sweater. Casual but put together. She added simple jewelry and checked her reflection one last time. Her phone buzzed. "Julian, just confirming you have the address. My sister lives about 30 minutes from the city, so factor in travel time. I'm leaving now. See you soon." The bus ride gave Anaya time to think. She was about to meet Julian's family, to step into his world in a way that felt significant. What if they didn't like her? What if they thought Julian was making a mistake getting involved with someone who came with complications? She told herself to stop overthinking. Julian wanted her there. That was what mattered. The address led to a suburban neighborhood with tree-lined streets and well-kept houses. Julian's sister's home was a cheerful yellow colonial with a wheelchair ramp leading to the front door. Before Anaya could knock, the door swung open. A woman who looked like a female version of Julian stood there, grinning. She signed, "You must be Anaya." "I'm Vanessa. Come in, come in." Anaya liked her immediately. Vanessa had the same warm eyes as Julian, the same genuine smile. She wheeled herself backward to give Anaya room to enter. The house was full of people. Anaya spotted Julian across the room talking to an older couple, probably his parents. When he saw her, his face lit up. He excused himself and came over. "You made it," he signed. "I'm so glad. Your sister is lovely." "She's trouble but she's great," Julian signed with affection. Vanessa smacked his arm playfully. "Don't talk about me like I'm not here. Come on, Anaya, let me introduce you to everyone." The next hour was a whirlwind of names and faces. Julian's parents, Robert and Patricia Pierce, were warm and welcoming. His father was a retired teacher, his mother a nurse. They signed fluently, having learned when Vanessa was diagnosed as deaf at age 3. There were also cousins, friends and neighbors. About half the gathering was deaf, the other half hearing but able to sign. It was the most inclusive event Anaya had ever attended, where communication flowed naturally between everyone regardless of hearing ability. Vanessa cornered Anaya in the kitchen while Julian was outside setting up the grill. "So," she signed, "my brother is completely smitten with you." Anaya felt her face warm. "We're just getting to know each other. Please. I've never seen him like this. He called me 3 times this week just to talk about you. He's nervous about today, worried you won't like us." "I already like you. Your whole family is wonderful. We like you too." Julian needs someone who sees him, not his bank account. "From what I've heard, you definitely see him." "I try." Vanessa studied her seriously. "He told me about what happened with Brad. I'm sorry you went through that. It's over now." "Is it though?" "Julian says Brad backed off, but guys like that don't always stay backed off. Promise me you'll be careful." The concern in Vanessa's eyes was genuine. Anaya signed, "I promise. And I have Julian looking out for me now." "Yes you do. He's a good protector. Sometimes too good. He thinks he has to save everyone." Vanessa smiled. "But I don't think you need saving. I think you're strong enough on your own." "I am. But it's nice to have support." "That's the right attitude. Just make sure he knows you're his partner, not his project." The conversation gave Anaya a lot to think about. Was Julian seeing her as a partner or a project? The line could be blurry, especially with someone wealthy who was used to solving problems with resources. Lunch was served buffet style in the backyard. Julian had grilled burgers and vegetables, and the table was loaded with side dishes everyone had contributed. Anaya found herself between Julian and his mother, conversation flowing easily around her. Patricia Pierce signed to Anaya. Julian tells me you're a graphic designer. I'd love to see your work sometime. Anaya pulled out her phone and showed Patricia her portfolio. Julian's mother studied each piece carefully, asking questions about inspiration and technique. Her interest seemed genuine, not just polite. You have real talent, Patricia signed. And I love your use of bright colors. Too many designers think minimalism means no color, but you understand that boldness has its place. Thank you. That means a lot. I understand you're working with Julian's company now? Yes. He's given me a contract for some design work. Patricia smiled knowingly. And is he keeping business separate from personal? He's trying to. We both are. Good. That's important. Though I'll tell you a secret. Patricia leaned closer. I met Robert when he was my patient at the hospital. Dating someone you work with or for can be complicated, but sometimes the best relationships come from unexpected places. After lunch, Julian and Anaya walked through the neighborhood. The autumn leaves crunched under their feet, and the air smelled of wood smoke from someone's fireplace. Your family is great, Anaya signed. They like you too. My mom already asked when you're coming back. Really? Really? She thinks you're good for me. Julian paused at a bench in a small park. Can we sit for a minute? They sat and Julian turned to face her. He signed, I need to tell you something and I want to be completely honest. Anaya's heart rate picked up. Okay. When Brad first told me about you, about this potential date, I was skeptical. I thought it was too good to be true. But I agreed because something in how he described you made me curious. Your passion for your work, your determination to build something meaningful despite obstacles. He paused. I'm drawn to people who create rather than consume, who build rather than destroy. And from everything Brad said, you were that kind of person. You're telling me you were interested before you even met me? Yes. And then I met you and you exceeded every expectation. You're brave and honest and talented. You're kind but not naive. You've been hurt but you haven't let it make you bitter. Julian's hands moved slowly, deliberately. I'm falling for you, Anaya. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But I needed you to know that this isn't casual for me. This matters. Anaya felt tears prick her eyes. She signed, It matters to me too. You scare me a little because you're so confident and successful and you seem to have everything figured out. I keep waiting for you to realize I'm just a regular person with a small business and a lot of dreams but not many resources to make them happen. You're not just anything. You're extraordinary. And your dreams are going to happen. I believe that completely. Even if we don't work out romantically? Even then. Though I really hope we do work out. Anaya leaned against him, feeling the solidness of his presence. I hope so too. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching leaves drift down from the trees. Finally, Anaya signed, Thank you for inviting me today. For letting me into this part of your life. Thank you for coming. For giving me a chance despite the terrible way we met. They walked back to Vanessa's house hand in hand, their fingers intertwined. It felt natural, right, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. As the afternoon wore on, Anaya felt more and more comfortable with Julian's family. She helped Vanessa clean up after dessert, played a board game with Julian's younger cousins, and had a long conversation with his father about teaching methods for deaf students. When it was time to leave, everyone hugged her goodbye. Patricia held her hands and signed, Come back anytime. You're always welcome here. Julian drove Anaya back to the city, breaking his usual pattern of letting her maintain independence. I know you like taking the bus, he typed at a red light, but it's getting late and I'd feel better making sure you get home safely. Okay, Anaya typed back. For once, accepting help didn't feel like giving up independence. It felt like being cared for. At her apartment, Julian walked her to the door. Before she could invite him in, he signed, I'm going to say goodnight here. I want to do this right, take things at the right pace. What if I want to invite you up? Then I'd want to say yes. But I think we should wait. Build this properly. Anaya appreciated his restraint even as part of her wanted to ignore it. She signed, You're very honorable. I'm very aware that you're worth doing things right for. He kissed her cheek, soft and brief, then stepped back. Good night, Anaya. Good night, Julian. As she watched him walk away, Anaya felt something settle in her chest. She was falling for him too. Despite all her caution, despite all the reasons to protect herself, she was falling hard and fast. The question was whether she'd let herself fully fall, or whether she'd keep holding back out of fear. Later that night, as Anaya got ready for bed, her phone buzzed. Julian had sent her a photo from earlier, one Vanessa must have taken. It showed the two of them in the backyard, Anaya laughing at something Julian had signed. The caption read, "My favorite picture from today. You look happy." Anaya saved the photo and sent back, "I was happy. Thank you for today. Thank you for being there. Sleep well. You too." She set her phone aside and looked around her small apartment. For so long, this space had been her fortress, the place where she was safe from a world that often didn't understand her. But now she found herself imagining Julian here more often, sharing her space and her life. Maybe that was okay. Maybe letting someone in didn't mean losing herself. Maybe it meant becoming more fully who she was meant to be. With that thought, Anaya finally fell asleep, dreaming of bright colors and bold futures and a man with kind eyes who signed his heart to her. Monday morning brought a surprise. When Anaya arrived at work, Michelle called her into the conference room immediately. Inside were several executives from the company, including the CEO, Mr. Harrison Lee. Michelle signed as she spoke, "Anaya, we wanted to talk to you about your role here. We've been reviewing your work over the past 3 years, and we've realized we haven't been utilizing your talents properly." Anaya's heart raced. Was this about the Brad situation? Were they letting her go? Mr. Lee smiled and gestured for her to sit. Through Michelle's interpretation, he explained, "We're offering you a promotion to senior designer with a significant raise. We're also creating a new position, Director of Accessibility Design. We'd like you to consider taking that role. It would mean overseeing all our client projects to ensure they're accessible to people with disabilities." Anaya stared at them, hardly believing what she was hearing. She typed, "Is this because of what happened with Brad?" "No," Mr. Lee said firmly. "This is because you're talented and we've been foolish not to recognize it sooner. Brad's behavior brought several issues to our attention, including how we've undervalued certain employees. We want to fix that. Starting with you." The promotion came with a 30% raise and an office instead of a desk. Anaya accepted, trying to process the sudden change. After the meeting, she sat in her new office, a small room with a window overlooking the city. Teresa burst in moments later. "I heard you got promoted. That's amazing." "I can't believe it," Anaya signed. "A week ago I was invisible. Now I have an office." "You were never invisible. People just weren't looking properly." Teresa hugged her. "This is so deserved. Congratulations." Over the next few days, Anaya split her time between her new responsibilities at work and the design projects for Julian's company. She was careful to keep the two separate, not wanting anyone to think her promotion had anything to do with dating Julian. But the workload was intense. By Thursday, Anaya was exhausted, staying late at the office to finish everything. Julian had been respectful of her time, not pushing for daily contact, but she missed him. They'd been texting regularly, but she hadn't seen him since Saturday. Thursday evening, as Anaya worked on a client presentation, her office door opened. Julian stood there holding 2 takeout bags. "I come bearing food," he signed. "Michelle told me you've been working late all week. I thought you might be hungry." Anaya felt her heart warm. She signed, "How did you get up here?" "I called ahead and got visitor clearance." "Don't worry, I'm following all proper protocols." He set the bags on her desk. "Thai food okay?" "Perfect." They ate together, Julian sitting in the chair across from her desk. He asked about her new role, and she told him about the projects she was overseeing. It felt good to share her excitement with someone who understood. "I'm really proud of you," Julian typed. "This promotion is well deserved. Some people might think you had something to do with it." "Do you think that?" Anaya considered. "No. Mr. Lee was clear that this was about my work. But I'm sure the situation with Brad made them reevaluate their practices. Then something good came from something bad. That's not a bad thing." After they finished eating, Julian helped her clean up. As they worked, he signed, "I have something to ask you. It's a big request and I want you to feel free to say no." "What is it?" "My company is hosting a gala next month. It's a fundraiser for accessibility initiatives. I'd like you to come as my date. It's formal and there will be a lot of press there." He paused. "I know that might be uncomfortable being photographed and having people ask questions. But I want you there." Anaya's first instinct was to refuse. A gala meant wealthy people, photographers, questions about their relationship. It meant going public in a way they hadn't yet. But Julian's eyes were hopeful, and she realized he wasn't asking lightly. This was him wanting to share an important event with her, to have her beside him in his professional world. "I'll need a dress," she signed. Julian's face broke into a huge smile. "Is that a yes?" It's a yes. But I'm paying for my own dress. Anaya. Julian, I appreciate your generosity, but I need to do this myself. It's important to me. He nodded slowly. Okay. But let me know if you change your mind. They talked for another hour, leaning against her desk, the office building quiet around them. Julian told her about the gala's purpose, about the organizations that would benefit from the funds raised. His passion was evident in every sign, every gesture. You really care about this work? Anaya signed. I do. Growing up with Vanessa, seeing how the world was designed without her in mind, it made me determined to change things. Every product we create, every initiative we fund, it's about making space for everyone. That's beautiful. You're doing important work. So are you now. Your new role at your company could change how they approach every project. That ripple effect will be huge. Anaya hadn't thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on the immediate responsibilities that she hadn't considered the larger impact. Julian was right though. If she did this well, she could influence how her company and their clients thought about accessibility. Thank you, she signed, for believing in me even before you knew me. Thank you for giving me a chance despite the terrible circumstances we met under. Julian left a little after 9, and Anaya finished her work with renewed energy. She felt surrounded by support, by people who saw her value. It was an unfamiliar but wonderful feeling. Are you afraid of trusting someone who seems too good to be true? Have you ever taken a leap of faith that changed your life? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for the rest of this story. The next few weeks flew by. Anaya threw herself into her work, both at her job and for Julian's company. She attended design meetings, reviewed accessibility standards, and created materials that would help Julian's products reach more people. They saw each other when they could, stealing dinners and weekend walks. Julian was patient with her schedule, never complaining when she had to cancel or reschedule. He sent her encouraging texts when she was stressed and funny memes when she needed to laugh. Vanessa became a regular presence in Anaya's life too, texting her design questions and inviting her to lunch. Anaya appreciated having another deaf woman to talk to, someone who understood both the challenges and the joys. One Saturday, Vanessa took Anaya shopping for a gala dress. They hit every boutique in the city, trying on dozens of options. Finally, in a small shop tucked away on a side street, Anaya found it. The dress was a deep emerald green, fitted at the top and flowing at the bottom. It had a modest neckline but an open back that made it elegant without being revealing. When Anaya tried it on, Vanessa's eyes went wide. Julian is going to lose his mind, she signed. You look stunning. It's expensive, Anaya signed, looking at the price tag. It's perfect, and you can afford it now with your raise. Treat yourself. Anaya bought the dress along with matching shoes and a small clutch. As they left the shop, Vanessa pulled her into a coffee shop. I need to talk to you about something, Vanessa signed once they were settled with their drinks. Okay. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But I want to give you some advice about my brother. Vanessa set down her coffee. Julian has a tendency to go all in on things. When he cares about something or someone, he gives it everything. That's great, but it can also be overwhelming. I've noticed. He's very intense. He is. And I don't want you to feel pressured or rushed. Julian's heart is in the right place, but he doesn't always understand that other people need time to catch up to his pace. He's been patient with me, Anaya signed. More patient than I expected. Good. Keep letting him know what you need. He'll listen. Vanessa smiled. But I also want you to know that his feelings are genuine. He's not playing games or going to lose interest. When Julian commits to something, he's all in. That's actually a little scary. I know. But it's also rare and precious. Just, don't run away because it's intense. If you need to slow down, tell him. But don't run. Anaya thought about Vanessa's words for the rest of the day. Was she running? She'd kept Julian at a certain distance, maintaining her independence, protecting her heart. But maybe it was time to let those walls down a bit more. That evening, she texted Julian, "Want to come over for dinner tomorrow? I'll cook." His response was immediate, "I'd love that. What can I bring?" "Just yourself." Sunday afternoon, Anaya cleaned her apartment and cooked her mother's recipe for jollof rice with chicken. It was one of the few recipes she had from her childhood, carefully preserved in a stained notebook. When Julian arrived, carrying flowers despite being told to bring nothing, Anaya hugged him tight. He held her, seeming surprised but pleased by the enthusiastic greeting. "Hi," he signed when they pulled apart. "Hi yourself. Come in." They ate dinner sitting on her couch, plates balanced on their laps. Julian praised her cooking enthusiastically and Anaya felt proud. This was her heritage, her history, shared with someone who appreciated it. After dinner, they looked through photo albums on Anaya's laptop. Pictures of her parents, of her childhood, of her design school years. Julian studied each one carefully, asking questions and learning her story. "You've overcome so much," he signed. "Lost your parents, built a business, navigated a world that often doesn't accommodate you. You're incredible." "I did what I had to do. Anyone would." "No, they wouldn't. A lot of people would have given up. You kept fighting." Anaya turned to face him fully. "I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it." "I'm listening." "I'm falling in love with you." The signs felt huge, momentous. "It scares me because it's fast and because you have so much power to hurt me. But I'm tired of protecting my heart. I want to let you in." Julian's eyes were bright with emotion. He signed, "I'm already in love with you. I've been for weeks. I've just been waiting for you to feel safe enough to hear it." They kissed then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was their first real kiss and it felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, Anaya was smiling. "The gala is going to be interesting," she signed. "Why's that?" "Because everyone's going to see how I look at you and they're going to know." "Good. I want them to know." They spent the rest of the evening curled up together talking about everything and nothing. Julian told her about his dreams for the company, about initiatives he wanted to start. Anaya shared her vision for the community center she hoped to create someday. About that, Julian signed. "I have a proposal. A real business proposal, separate from us personally." "I'm listening." "I want to fund your community center. Not as a gift but as an investment. You'd run it, design it, build it from the ground up. I'd provide the startup capital and ongoing support. But it would be yours." Anaya felt tears spring to her eyes. "Julian, that's my dream. You can't just hand people their dreams." "I'm not handing you anything. I'm offering partnership. You do all the work, make all the decisions. I just provide the resources you need." He signed earnestly, "Please don't say no out of pride. This isn't charity. This is an investment in something important, in someone brilliant who can make it happen. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need." But even as Anaya said the words, she knew what her answer would be. Vanessa had told her not to run, and accepting Julian's help wasn't running. It was brave. It was trusting. It was saying yes to possibilities instead of limiting herself out of fear. "Okay," she signed. "Yes. Let's do it." Julian pulled her into a tight hug, and Anaya felt his heart beating against hers. This was real. This was happening. Her dream was going to become reality, and the man she loved was going to help her build it. Sometimes, the best things in life came from the worst moments. Brad's cruel joke had led her here, to Julian, to love, to possibilities she'd never imagined. And for that, strange as it seemed, she was grateful. The next morning, Julian sent her a text. "I've set up a meeting with a real estate agent for next week. We're going to look at potential locations for the center. Get ready to start turning your dream into reality." Anaya stared at the message, hardly believing this was her life now. But it was, and she was going to embrace every moment of it. The real estate agent, Monica Chin, met them at a building in a neighborhood Anaya had always loved. It was diverse, vibrant, with murals on walls and community gardens on empty lots. The building itself was an old warehouse, brick and sturdy, with huge windows and high ceilings. "It's been empty for 2 years, Monica signed and spoke as they walked through. She was hearing but fluent in ASL, which Julian had specifically requested. "The owner is motivated to sell. The space needs work, but the bones are excellent." Anaya walked through the main floor, her mind already imagining how to transform it. There was enough space for studios, classrooms, a gallery, and a communal area. The natural light was perfect for artists. The location was accessible by public transit. She turned to Julian, who was watching her with a smile. She signed, "It's perfect. Then let's make an offer." The next weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork, inspections, and planning. Julian's legal team handled the purchase while Anaya worked with architects to design the renovation. She spent every free moment sketching layouts and choosing materials. At work, she was implementing new accessibility standards for all client projects. The response had been overwhelmingly positive. Several clients specifically requested to work with her team because of the inclusive approach. One afternoon, Mr. Lee called her into his office. "Anaya, I wanted to tell you personally that the board is incredibly impressed with the changes you've implemented. We're seeing increased client satisfaction and several new contracts specifically because of our accessibility reputation." Anaya typed, That's wonderful to hear. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for taking it and running with it. Mr. Lee smiled. I have to ask, where did you learn so much about inclusive design practices? From living it every day. But also from studying what other companies do well and what they miss. She paused, then added, and from consulting with people from various disability communities. The best way to design for people is to listen to them. That's wisdom I wish more people in our industry understood. As October moved toward November, the gala approached. Anaya found herself both excited and nervous. This would be her first major public appearance with Julian, and she wasn't naive about what that meant. People would have questions and opinions. The week before the gala, Julian took her to dinner at a quiet restaurant. They'd fallen into a comfortable rhythm, seeing each other several times a week, talking every day. Things between them felt solid, real, built on more than just initial attraction. I need to prepare you for something, Julian typed over dessert. The gala will have press there. They'll want photos and they'll want to know who you are. I assumed as much. My PR team put together a brief statement we can give them if you're comfortable. Just the basics, your name, that you're a designer, that we're dating. Nothing invasive. Anaya appreciated his thoughtfulness. That sounds fine. What should I expect question-wise? They'll probably ask how we met. We should have an answer prepared that's true but doesn't mention Brad or the prank. They worked together on a simple story. They'd been set up by a mutual acquaintance and connected over their shared interest in accessibility design. It was true enough without being complicated. Are you worried about the attention? Julian asked. Anaya considered. A little. But mostly I'm excited. I want to be there with you, supporting something you care about. You don't have to worry about my family being there. They already love you. Vanessa has been telling everyone about the community center project. She's planning to be one of the instructors, by the way. She wants to teach young deaf artists. Really? That would be amazing. She's excited. The whole family is. My mom keeps asking when construction starts. They talked about the center for the rest of dinner, discussing timeline and programming ideas. Anaya had never felt more supported in her vision. Julian listened to every idea, offered suggestions when asked, but never tried to take over or control the project. As they left the restaurant, Julian took her hand. They walked through the city streets, comfortable in their silence. At her apartment building, he pulled her close. I'm really glad Brad set up that date, he signed. Even though his intentions were awful, it brought us together. Maybe some good things come from bad intentions, Anaya signed back. Like how something beautiful can grow from broken ground. That's poetic. You should use that in your center's mission statement. They kissed goodnight, and Anaya floated up to her apartment feeling content. Life had shifted so dramatically in such a short time. 6 weeks ago, she'd been struggling designer with few prospects. Now she had a promotion, a contract with a major company, a community center in the works, and a relationship with someone who made her feel seen and valued. The night of the gala arrived clear and cool. Anaya spent the afternoon getting ready, taking extra care with her hair and makeup. When she put on the green dress, she hardly recognized herself. She looked elegant, confident, like someone who belonged at a Billionaire's gala. Teresa had come over to help, and she whistled appreciatively. Julian is going to lose his mind when he sees you. That's the plan, Anaya signed with a smile. Julian arrived at 7 sharp, looking stunning in a black tuxedo. When Anaya opened the door, he froze, his eyes going wide. You look. He signed, then stopped, seemingly unable to find the right words. Finally he just signed, wow. You look pretty wow yourself. In the car, Julian held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Are you nervous? A little. You. Terrified. Not of the gala but of messing this up somehow. You mean too much to me. You're not going to mess anything up. We're in this together, remember? The gala was held at a historic hotel downtown, the ballroom glittering with chandeliers and filled with elegantly dressed people. As they entered, Anaya felt eyes turning toward them. Julian kept her hand firmly in his, a steady presence beside her. A photographer approached, asking for a photo. They posed together, Julian's arm around her waist. More photos followed, and then a reporter asked the prepared questions. Anaya let Julian handle most of the answers, adding her input when relevant. And your name, miss? The reporter asked Anaya. Anaya Thompson, she signed, and Julian interpreted aloud. I'm a graphic designer. How did you two meet? Julian answered smoothly, through a mutual acquaintance. We connected over our shared passion for accessibility in technology and design. The reporter smiled and moved on to other guests. Julian leaned close to Anaya and signed, "That went well." The evening unfolded beautifully. Anaya met dozens of people, all of whom were friendly and welcoming. She watched Julian work the room, confident and charming, but he always came back to her, including her in conversations, making sure she felt comfortable. During dinner, Julian's parents sat at their table along with Vanessa and a few company executives. The conversation was easy and inclusive, with everyone making sure to sign or have their words interpreted. Patricia Pierce squeezed Anaya's hand. "You look beautiful tonight. And happy. I'm glad Julian found you." "I'm glad too," Anaya signed back. After dinner came the presentations. Julian gave a speech about the importance of accessibility, about designing a world that included everyone. Anaya watched him, proud and a little awed. He was brilliant and passionate, and somehow he'd chosen her. During the auction portion of the evening, Julian bid on several items, winning a painting that Anaya had admired earlier. "For the community center," he told her. "Every space needs art." As the night wound down, they danced. The live band played jazz standards, and Julian held her close, their movements synchronized. Other couples swirled around them, but Anaya only had eyes for Julian. "Thank you for tonight," she signed when the song ended. "This has been magical. Thank you for being here. For being mine." "Yours," she signed back, testing the word. Felt right. Later, as they left the hotel, reporters called out questions. Most were about the gala, but one shouted, "Mr. Pierce, is this relationship serious?" Julian stopped and turned, pulling Anaya close. He spoke clearly, "Very serious. Anaya is an incredibly talented designer and an amazing person. I'm lucky to have her in my life." In the car, Anaya squeezed his hand. "You didn't have to say that." "Yes, I did. I want everyone to know how I feel about you. Even though we've only been together a couple months? I don't care about timelines. I know what I feel. I know you're it for me." They drove back to her apartment, and this time Julian came upstairs. They sat on her couch, still in their formal wear, and talked about the evening. About the people they'd met, the money raised, the success of the event. "The center is really going to happen," Anaya signed, wonder in her expression. "We're actually building it." "We are. Ground breaks in 3 weeks. Are you ready?" "I've never been more ready for anything." Julian pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through her window. Anaya felt peaceful in a way she'd never experienced before. This was what it meant to be truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. "Can I tell you something?" Julian signed. "Always. I knew that first night at the restaurant that you were going to change my life. Even with all the chaos and Brad's cruelty, I looked at you and knew." "Knew what?" "That I'd found home." Anaya felt tears prick her eyes. She signed, "You're my home too." It scared me at first how quickly I felt that. But now I'm just grateful. They fell asleep on her couch that night, wrapped around each other, still in their gala clothes. When Anaya woke in the early morning, she found Julian watching her. "Good morning," he signed. "You snore a little. It's cute." She smacked his arm playfully. "You weren't supposed to tell me that. I'll tell you everything. No secrets between us." They made breakfast together in her tiny kitchen, Julian cooking eggs while Anaya made toast. It was domestic and easy, a glimpse of what their future could look like. As they ate, Anaya's phone buzzed. An email from Teresa. "Girl, you're all over the society pages. The internet is obsessed with you and Julian. Check out these headlines." Anaya opened the links Teresa sent. Sure enough, photos from the gala were everywhere, and several articles speculated about Julian Pierce's mysterious new girlfriend. Most of the coverage was positive, focusing on how stunning they looked together and praising the gala's success. She showed Julian, who frowned slightly. "I'm sorry. I hoped the coverage would be minimal." "It's okay. This is part of your life, and now it's part of mine too. I can handle it. If anyone gives you trouble or publishes anything inappropriate, let me know immediately. My PR team can address it. I'm not worried. People can think what they want. I know the truth. We're real, this is real, and that's all that matters." Julian kissed her forehead. "How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky. Brad's cruelty brought us together, but we chose to build something beautiful from it. That's on us, not luck." Over the next few weeks, life continued its new, wonderful rhythm. Anaya worked on the center's design while managing her responsibilities at both her job and Julian's company. Julian supported her vision while giving her space to make it her own. The media attention died down quickly, as it always did. A few photos remained online, but mostly people moved on to the next story. Anaya was grateful for the return to relative privacy. Construction on the center began in late November. Anaya stood with Julian at the groundbreaking ceremony, turning over the first shovel of dirt. Vanessa was there, along with Julian's parents, Teresa, Michelle from work, and several members of the deaf community who'd heard about the project. "This is really happening," Anaya signed to the small crowd. "Because of all of you who believed in this vision. Because of your support and encouragement. Thank you." Julian signed his own brief speech. "This center represents what's possible when we create space for everyone. When we listen to voices that have been excluded. Anaya Thompson is showing us all what leadership and vision look like. I'm honored to be part of bringing her dream to life." That evening, exhausted but happy, Anaya and Julian had dinner at his penthouse apartment. It was the first time she'd been there, and she was struck by how different it was from what she'd expected. Instead of cold modern design, the space was warm and personal, full of family photos and comfortable furniture. "It's not what people expect," Julian sighed, noticing her surprise. "They think I'll have some minimalist bachelor pad. But I like things that feel like home." "It's perfect. Very you." They cooked together a meal of pasta and salad, simple and delicious. As they ate, Julian brought up something that had clearly been on his mind. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest." "Okay. Are you happy? Not just with the center or your work, but with us? With how things are going?" Anaya set down her fork and signed carefully. "I'm happier than I've ever been. Sometimes I have to pinch myself because it seems too good to be real. But yes, I'm very happy." "Good. Because I want you to be happy. That's my main goal." "What about your happiness?" "I'm happy when you're happy. It's that simple." They finished dinner and moved to his couch, a huge comfortable thing where they could stretch out. They watched a movie with captions, Julian's arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest. Halfway through the film, Anaya turned to look up at him. He felt her movement and looked down, raising an eyebrow questioningly. "I love you," she sighed. "I wanted to say it again just because. I love you too. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone." They kissed and the movie played on Forgotten. This was real. This was forever. Anaya could feel it in her bones, in her heart, in every part of her being. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. December arrived with the first real cold of winter. The community center's construction was progressing rapidly, the skeleton of Anaya's dream taking physical form. She visited the site several times a week, wearing her bright red coat and hard hat, consulting with contractors and architects. Julian came with her when he could, but he was careful not to overshadow her authority. This was Anaya's project, her vision, and he made sure everyone understood that. The contractors quickly learned to direct all questions to her, and she handled them with growing confidence. One afternoon, as they stood in what would become the main gallery space, Anaya turned to Julian. "I want to name the center. Something meaningful." "What are you thinking?" "Hope Community Arts Center. Because that's what this place represents for me. Hope that things can change, that dreams can come true, that we can create spaces that include everyone." "It's perfect." The name was made official, and Hope Community Arts Center began appearing on permits and plans. Vanessa started spreading the word through the deaf community, and interest grew rapidly. People wanted to teach, to learn, to be part of something meaningful. Anaya's workload was overwhelming, but she loved every minute of it. Between her full-time job, her contract work for Julian's company, and the center planning, she had little free time. But Julian was patient, showing up with food when she worked late, handling administrative tasks for the center, giving her space when she needed to focus. One evening in mid-December, Anaya was working late at her office when Michelle stopped by. "Go home," Michelle signed. "You've been here until 9 every night this week." "I'm almost done." "You always say that." Michelle sat down across from her. "I'm saying this as your supervisor and your friend. You're going to burn out if you don't slow down." Anaya knew Michelle was right. She'd been running at full speed for months and exhaustion was catching up. She typed, "I just want to do everything well. The center, this job, Julian's projects. I don't want to disappoint anyone." "You won't disappoint anyone by taking care of yourself. In fact, you'll disappoint people if you work yourself into the ground." Michelle smiled. "Take tomorrow off. Sleep in. Do something fun with Julian. Recharge." Reluctantly, Anaya agreed. She texted Julian on her way home, "Michelle is making me take tomorrow off. Want to do something with me?" His response was immediate, "Absolutely. I'll pick you up at 10. Dress warm." The next morning, Julian arrived with hot chocolate and a mysterious smile. He drove them out of the city into the countryside where snow had already fallen and covered everything in white. "Where are we going?" Anaya signed from the passenger seat. "You'll see." They ended up at a small farm that did winter activities. There was ice skating, sleigh rides, and a small lodge with a fireplace. Julian had arranged for a private skating session, complete with an instructor who knew ASL. Anaya hadn't skated since she was a child and she wobbled badly at first. But Julian held her hand, steady and sure, and gradually she found her balance. They glided around the rink, the winter sun bright overhead, and Anaya felt some of her exhaustion melt away. "This is exactly what I needed," she signed when they took a break. "Thank you. I could tell you were getting overwhelmed. You needed a day away from everything." They had lunch in the lodge, soup and sandwiches by the fireplace. The warmth and the food and the quiet day made Anaya feel human again. "I've been thinking about something," Julian signed as they ate. "You've been working yourself too hard. What if we hired a project manager for the center? Someone who could handle the day-to-day logistics so you could focus on the creative vision." Anaya's first instinct was to refuse, to insist she could handle everything herself. But then she thought about Michelle's warning, about the exhaustion that was becoming her constant companion. "That might be good," she signed slowly. "But I want to be involved in hiring them. I need someone who understands the mission." "Of course. We'll interview candidates together." After lunch they took a sleigh ride through snowy fields. Wrapped in blankets, sitting close together, Anaya felt peaceful. Julian was right to bring her here, to force her to step back and breathe. "Can I ask you something?" she signed as the horse pulled them along. "Always. Do you ever regret that we met the way we did? That our relationship started with a cruel prank?" Julian thought for a moment before signing. "I regret that Brad tried to hurt you. I regret that you had to experience that humiliation. But I don't regret meeting you no matter how it happened. Sometimes beautiful things grow from difficult situations." "That's what I think too. But sometimes I worry that our foundation is built on something negative. Our foundation is built on honesty and kindness and respect. Brad's prank was just the circumstance. We chose to build something real from it." Julian took her hand. "Don't let his cruelty taint what we have. We're better than that." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the farm, and by the time they drove back to the city, Anaya felt renewed. Taking time for herself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. That weekend, Julian's family hosted an early Christmas celebration. Anaya brought homemade cookies, a recipe from her mother, and wore a bright green sweater. The house was full of warmth and laughter, exactly what the season should feel like. Vanessa pulled her aside at one point. "You look better than you did last week. Julian said he took you skating." "He did. I needed it. You're working too hard. I know the center is important, but you have to take care of yourself too." Vanessa signed seriously. "Promise me you'll find balance." "I promise." "I'm hiring a project manager to help with the logistics." "Good. Because I need you healthy and happy when the center opens. I'm planning to teach 3 classes a week and I need you there to keep me organized." Anaya laughed. "Deal." After dinner, Julian's parents gave everyone gifts. When it was Anaya's turn, Patricia handed her a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm, a paintbrush crossed with a pencil. "For the artist in you," Patricia signed. "Welcome to the family, Anaya." Officially. Anaya felt tears spring to her eyes. The gesture was simple but profound, an acceptance she'd been craving even though she hadn't realized it. She hugged Patricia tightly, signing, "Thank you. This means everything to me." As they drove home later, Anaya turned to Julian. "Your mom said, 'Welcome to the family officially.' What does that mean?" Julian smiled. "It means they see you as permanent. As someone who's not going anywhere." "Is that how you see me?" "That's exactly how I see you. You're it for me, Anaya. This isn't temporary or casual. This is forever." The words should have scared her, but they didn't. They felt right. She signed, "Forever sounds good to me." The week before Christmas, Anaya interviewed 3 candidates for the center's project manager position. The third candidate, Gabriela Santos, was perfect. She was a hearing woman who was fluent in ASL, having grown up with deaf parents. She had experience in arts administration and a genuine passion for inclusive spaces. "I've been following this project since the groundbreaking," Gabriela said through sign and voice. "A space like this is desperately needed. I'd be honored to help bring it to life." Anaya hired her on the spot. With Gabriela handling logistics, Anaya could focus on the programming, the design elements, and the community outreach. Almost immediately, she felt the weight on her shoulders lighten. Christmas Day, Anaya and Julian exchanged gifts at his apartment. She'd gotten him a custom piece of art, a painting by a deaf artist that she'd commissioned showing the city skyline with subtle ASL hand shapes hidden throughout. Julian's eyes went wide when he saw it. "This is incredible. Where did you find this artist?" "I didn't find them, I commissioned it specifically for you. The artist is someone I went to school with. They do amazing work." "I love it. Thank you." Julian pulled out his gift for her. "This is small, but I hope it means something." Inside the box was a key. Anaya looked at it, confused, then at Julian questioningly. He signed, "It's a key to my apartment. I want you to feel like you can come and go freely, like this is your space too. I'm not asking you to move in, just offering you a place here if you want it." Anaya held the key, feeling its weight. This was another step forward, another deepening of their commitment. She signed, "Thank you. I'm not ready to move in yet, but I love knowing I have a place with you. There's no rush. Take all the time you need." They spent Christmas Day cooking together, watching movies, and enjoying the quiet domesticity of the holiday. Anaya felt content, wrapped in Julian's arms, building a life that felt solid and real. As the year drew to a close, Anaya reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago she'd been alone, struggling, invisible. Now she had Julian, a thriving career, and a dream taking physical form. It felt like magic, but she knew it was more than that. It was hard work, determination, and the courage to accept help when it was offered. New Year's Eve, they attended a party hosted by one of Julian's business associates. It was elegant and crowded, full of wealthy people in expensive clothes. Anaya wore her red dress from the restaurant, the one that had survived Brad's prank, as a reminder of how far she'd come. At midnight, as everyone counted down, Julian pulled Anaya close. When the clock struck 12, he signed, "This is going to be the best year of our lives. I can feel it." "How do you know?" "Because we're together. As long as we're together, every year will be better than the last." They kissed as fireworks exploded outside, visible through the penthouse windows. Anaya felt hope bubble up inside her, bright and effervescent. Julian was right. Together they could handle anything. The new year brought renewed energy to the center project. Construction was on schedule to finish in late February, which meant Anaya needed to finalize the programming and staffing. With Gabriella's help, she created a schedule of classes: art, design, ASL for hearing people, workshops on accessibility, and open studio time. Vanessa agreed to teach beginner and advanced painting classes. Julian offered to fund a youth scholarship program so deaf children and teenagers could attend classes free of charge. Other instructors from the community signed on, excited to be part of something meaningful. One afternoon in late January, as Anaya and Gabriella toured the nearly finished center, Anaya felt overwhelmed with emotion. The gallery space was beautiful, with excellent lighting and movable walls for flexible exhibitions. The classrooms were bright and welcoming. The communal area had comfortable seating and a small kitchen for events. "It's real," she signed to Gabriella. "This is actually happening." "It's happening because you made it happen," Gabriella signed back. "Your vision, your determination. Julian provided resources, but you created this." That distinction mattered to Anaya. She hadn't just been handed a dream, she'd built it with her own hands and mind. Julian had been the bridge, providing support when she needed it, but she was the architect. The center's opening was scheduled for March 1st, with a grand opening celebration planned for March 15th. Invitations went out to the community, to local media, to potential donors and supporters. The response was overwhelming. People wanted to be part of this, wanted to see what Hope Community Arts Center would become. Through all of this, Julian remained supportive but not overbearing. He showed up when needed, stayed back when Anaya needed to lead. He celebrated her victories and helped her navigate obstacles. Their relationship had deepened into something comfortable and secure, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. One evening, as they sat in Anaya's apartment planning the grand opening, Julian set down his papers and signed, "I have something to tell you, and I hope it doesn't freak you out." Anaya's heart skipped. "What is it?" "I've been thinking about our future. About what comes next for us. And I want you to know that I see marriage in our future. Not right now, but eventually. I want to spend my life with you." Anaya felt her breath catch. They'd been together less than 6 months, but it felt longer. It felt like they'd known each other forever. She signed, "I see that too. Marriage, a future together. It doesn't freak me out. It makes me happy." "Really?" You're not scared by how fast this is moving. I'm not scared anymore. I trust this. I trust us. They sealed the promise with a kiss, and Anaya felt something settle in her chest. This was her future. Julian, the center, a life built on hope and hard work and love. The only question now was how they'd navigate whatever challenges came next. But looking at Julian, seeing the love and determination in his eyes, Anaya knew they'd figure it out together. February brought unexpected complications. 3 weeks before the center's soft opening, Anaya received an email that made her blood run cold. It was from Brad Collins's lawyer, informing her that Brad was filing a lawsuit against her and Julian for defamation and emotional distress. The letter claimed that Anaya had falsely accused Brad of harassment, that she and Julian had conspired to ruin his reputation and career, and that he'd suffered significant emotional and financial damage as a result. He was seeking $500,000 in damages. Anaya showed the email to Julian immediately. They were at his apartment planning the center's opening schedule, and the email felt like ice water dumped on their happiness. Julian read it twice, his expression growing darker. He typed, "This is ridiculous. He has no case. We have documentation of everything that happened. But he's still suing. That means lawyers, court dates, stress." Anaya felt panic rising. What if this affects the center? What if donors pull out because of the negative attention? "Hey, look at me." Julian waited until she met his eyes. "We're not going to let Brad ruin what you've built. My legal team will handle this. We have evidence, witnesses, everything we need to prove he's lying. I can't believe he's doing this. I thought it was over. People like Brad don't give up easily. But he picked the wrong people to mess with." Julian pulled out his phone and started typing. "I'm calling my lawyer right now. We'll file a response tomorrow and start gathering all our evidence." Over the next few days, Julian's legal team swung into action. They collected the security footage from the restaurant, statements from witnesses, documentation of Brad's termination for cause, and the evidence of the videos he tried to take. They also found information about Brad's financial situation. He'd been out of work since his termination and had burned through most of his savings. "He's desperate," Julian's lawyer explained during a meeting. "This lawsuit is a last-ditch attempt to get money. He knows he doesn't have a real case, but he's hoping you'll settle to avoid the hassle and publicity." "We're not settling," Julian said firmly. "I want this to go to trial if necessary. I want Brad to face consequences for his actions." The lawyer nodded. "That's your right. But be prepared for this to get messy. Brad's lawyer will try to make this about your relationship with Ms. Thompson, claiming it biases your actions." Anaya had been quiet during the meeting, but now she signed, "Will this affect the center? That's what I'm most worried about." "It could generate some negative publicity," the lawyer admitted. "But it could also generate sympathy and support. People don't like bullies, and Brad's behavior was clearly that of a bully." After the meeting, Anaya felt drained. Julian drove her back to her apartment and came upstairs with her. They sat on her couch, exhausted and worried. "I'm sorry," Julian signed. "I never meant for my involvement to create more problems for you. This isn't your fault. It's Brad's fault. He's the one who started all of this with his cruel prank. I know, but if I hadn't confronted him so publicly, if I hadn't gotten him fired." "He got himself fired," Anaya interrupted. "His behavior toward multiple people got him fired. You just made sure there were consequences." They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Anaya signed, "I'm scared. Not of the lawsuit, but of losing everything we've built. The center, my career, us. You're not going to lose any of that. I promise." Julian took her hands. "We're going to fight this together and we're going to win. Brad is not going to destroy what you've created." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're stronger than he is. Because we have the truth on our side. And because I'm not going to let him hurt you again." Over the next 2 weeks, the lawsuit became public knowledge. Some media outlets picked up the story, portraying it as a he-said-she-said situation. Others investigated more thoroughly and came down firmly on Anaya and Julian's side, publishing pieces about Brad's pattern of behavior and previous complaints. The publicity was stressful, but it also generated unexpected support. Donations to the center increased as people heard Anaya's story. Other women came forward with their own experiences of Brad's harassment. The case that had seemed so threatening began to look more and more like exactly what it was: a desperate attempt by a bully to avoid accountability. The center's soft opening proceeded as planned on March 1st. Despite the ongoing lawsuit, nearly 100 people attended. The space was finished, beautiful and welcoming, exactly as Anaya had envisioned. Classes began the following week, and within days they were at capacity. Anaya taught a beginner graphic design course, sharing her knowledge with deaf adults who'd never had access to design education. Vanessa's painting classes filled immediately. The youth scholarship program brought in dozens of teenagers eager to learn and create. Standing in the gallery during the first week of classes, watching students work, Anaya felt tears of happiness. This was real. This was happening. Brad's lawsuit couldn't take this away from her. Julian found her there, wrapping his arms around her from behind. He signed against her shoulder, "I'm so proud of you. We did this together. You did this. I just helped make it possible." The distinction mattered, and Anaya appreciated that Julian understood that. She turned in his arms and signed, "Thank you for not letting Brad scare us into hiding. Thank you for standing with me. Always. That's what love means." The grand opening on March 15th was a huge success. Over 300 people attended, including local politicians, donors, media, and community members. Speeches were given in both ASL and spoken English, emphasizing the center's mission of inclusion and access. Anaya gave a short speech, her hands moving expressively as she shared her vision. Hope Community Arts Center exists because we believe everyone deserves space to create, to learn, to grow. We believe that art belongs to all of us, not just those who've had easy access to it. Thank you for being part of this dream. Thank you for believing that we could create something beautiful and necessary. The crowd erupted in applause, both clapping and waving hands in the ASL style. Julian stood off to the side, beaming with pride. His parents were there, Vanessa was there, even Teresa and Michelle from Anaya's office had come to support her. During the reception, a woman approached Anaya. She introduced herself as a reporter from a major newspaper and asked for an interview about the center and the lawsuit. Anaya hesitated, but Julian encouraged her, "Tell your story. People need to hear it." The interview ran the following week with the headline, "Designer Turns Cruel Prank into Community Triumph." It told Anaya's story honestly, from Brad's harassment to the lawsuit to the creation of Hope Community Arts Center. The article presented her not as a victim, but as a victor, someone who'd refused to let cruelty stop her dreams. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support flooded in. More donations arrived. National media picked up the story, and suddenly Anaya was being asked to speak on panels about accessibility, inclusion, and turning adversity into opportunity. Through it all, Julian remained her steady support. He handled the business side of things, managed media requests, and made sure Anaya didn't get overwhelmed. But he also made sure she got the credit she deserved, always directing attention back to her work and vision. In early April, Brad's lawyer contacted them with a settlement offer. Brad would drop the lawsuit if Julian and Anaya agreed not to pursue any counterclaims and signed a non-disclosure agreement. "What do you think?" Anaya asked Julian as they reviewed the offer. "I think it's admission that he knows he can't win. But the decision is yours. Do you want this over, or do you want to see it through to the end?" Anaya thought about Brad, about his cruelty and his desperate attempt to salvage his reputation. She thought about how his actions had actually led to something beautiful. Her relationship with Julian, the success of the center, her own growth and confidence. "I want to accept the settlement," she signed. "Not because I'm scared, but because I'm done giving him any more of my energy. He's not worth it." "Are you sure?" "We could win in court." "I'm sure." "Let him drop the lawsuit and slink away. I have better things to focus on." Julian smiled and pulled out his phone. "I'll tell the lawyers to accept the offer." The settlement was finalized within a week. Brad dropped his lawsuit, agreed not to contact Anaya or Julian again, and signed away any future claims. It was over, truly over this time. Anaya felt relief wash over her. She could focus entirely on the center now, on her students, on her relationship with Julian. The chapter with Brad was finally, completely closed. That weekend, Julian took her on a surprise trip. They flew to a beach resort, somewhere warm and far from the cold of early spring. They spent 3 days doing nothing but relaxing, swimming, and enjoying each other's company. On their last evening, as they watched the sunset from their balcony, Julian signed, "I have something for you." He pulled out a small box and Anaya's heart began to race. But when he opened it, instead of a ring, there was a key on a chain. "It's the key to the center," Julian signed. "The official one now that everything is finished. I had it made into a necklace so you could always carry it with you. A reminder of what you've built." Anaya felt tears spring to her eyes. She'd thought maybe he was proposing, and part of her was relieved he wasn't, not yet. But this gift was perfect, meaningful in a way that showed how well he understood her. Thank you, she signed. It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm not perfect, but I'm yours. They kissed as the sun set over the ocean, and Anaya felt complete happiness. The challenges of the past months had only made them stronger. Brad's attempt to hurt them had failed. They'd won not just legally but in every way that mattered. As they headed back inside, Julian signed one more thing. There's going to be more challenges ahead. Life isn't easy. But as long as we face them together, I know we'll be okay. More than okay, Anaya signed back. We'll be happy. And she believed it with every part of her being. Spring bloomed fully by late April, bringing warmth and new beginnings. Hope Community Arts Center was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. Classes were full, the gallery had hosted its first exhibition, and the waiting list for programs continued to grow. Anaya found her rhythm, splitting her time between teaching at the center, her contract work for Julian's company, and her job at the marketing firm. It was busy, but it felt balanced in a way her life never had before. She wasn't just surviving, she was genuinely thriving. One afternoon, as Anaya finished teaching her design class, Gabriella came in with news. We got another major grant. The Arts Council approved our application for $50,000. Anaya signed her excitement. That's amazing. We can expand the youth program like we'd planned. And hire another instructor. We need someone to teach digital art. They spent the next hour planning how to use the funds, Anaya's mind spinning with possibilities. The center had become something bigger than she'd imagined, touching more lives than she'd dared hope. And it was only the beginning. That evening, Julian picked her up from the center for dinner. They'd settled into a comfortable routine. A few dinners a week, weekends together, regular check-ins about their busy lives. It worked, this balance of togetherness and independence. At dinner, Julian seemed nervous. He kept fidgeting with his napkin, signing distractedly. Finally, Anaya reached across the table and took his hands. What's going on? She signed. You're not yourself tonight. Julian took a deep breath. I have something important to ask you and I'm terrified of your answer. Julian, you're scaring me. What is it? He pulled out a folder from his bag and slid it across the table. Inside were architectural plans, beautiful renderings of a building. Anaya studied them, confused. What is this? It's a design for a second Hope Community Arts Center, Julian signed. On the West Coast. I've been talking to investors and community leaders there, and they're desperate for something like what you've created. They want you to replicate your model. Anaya stared at the plans, her mind reeling. Julian, that's huge. I don't know if I can manage two centers. You wouldn't manage it directly. You'd hire someone to run the day-to-day operations like you did with Gabriella. But you'd oversee the vision, the programming, the design. You'd be the architect of something bigger than one center. He paused. Anaya, you could create a network of these spaces across the country. You could change lives on a scale you've never imagined. That's a lot of responsibility. I know. And if you're not ready, that's okay. But I believe in you. I believe you can do this. Anaya looked at the plans again, seeing the possibility. Multiple centers, all creating space for deaf artists and designers. All providing opportunities that hadn't existed before. It was terrifying and exciting in equal measure. I need time to think about it, she signed. Take all the time you need. There's no rush. But even as she said the words, Anaya felt the pull. This was the next step, the natural evolution of what she'd started. She'd been playing it safe for so long, limiting her dreams to what seemed achievable. Maybe it was time to dream bigger. Over the next week, Anaya talked to everyone she trusted. Vanessa encouraged her enthusiastically. Julian's parents thought it was a wonderful opportunity. Teresa pointed out that Anaya had proven she could make the impossible happen. Michelle at work had a different perspective. Are you sure you want to tie yourself so completely to Julian's vision? What happens if you two break up? You'd be dependent on his funding. The concern was valid. Anaya had been thinking about it too. Her relationship with Julian was solid, but Michelle was right that mixing business and romance was risky. That evening, Anaya invited Julian to her apartment. She'd made her decision, but she needed to make sure they were on the same page about something crucial first. I want to expand the center, she signed as they sat on her couch. But I need us to formalize the business arrangement properly. I need legal protections that ensure the centers continue even if something happens to us personally. Of course, Julian signed immediately. I'll have my lawyers draw up a structure that protects your interests and the center's interests. This is your project, Anaya. I'm just the financial backer. You're more than that. You're my partner in this. But I need to know that if things don't work out between us romantically, the centers won't suffer. They won't. I promise. Let's meet with the lawyers this week and set up a proper foundation. You'll have board control, financial independence, everything you need. Julian paused. But I have to ask, are you worried about us? About our relationship not lasting? Anaya thought carefully before responding. I'm not worried, but I'm also realistic. We've been together less than a year. People change. Circumstances change. I need to protect what we're building. I understand. And I appreciate that you're thinking ahead. Julian signed with a slight smile. Though for the record, I plan on us lasting forever. I meant what I said about marriage being in our future. I know. And I want that too. But I also need to be smart about business. They spent the rest of the evening planning, discussing timelines and logistics. Julian's lawyers could have the foundation paperwork ready within 2 weeks. The West Coast Center could break ground by fall if they moved quickly. Anaya would need to hire an executive director for the original center so she could focus on expansion. As the plans took shape, Anaya felt excitement building. This was really happening. She was going to create something that would outlast her, that would change lives for generations. 2 weeks later, the Hope Community Arts Foundation was officially established. Anaya served as president with full control over programming and direction. Julian provided the initial funding but sat on the board as a non-voting advisor. The legal structure ensured that even if Julian withdrew his support, the foundation would continue with assets protected. It wasn't about not trusting Julian. It was about building something sustainable and professional. And Julian understood that, respected it even. It made their personal relationship easier, knowing the business side was handled properly. In May, Anaya traveled to the West Coast to meet with community leaders and scout locations. Julian came with her, but he let her lead all the meetings. People responded to her vision, her passion, her understanding of what the community needed. By the end of the trip, they'd identified a perfect location and secured commitments from local donors. The second Hope Community Arts Center would open within a year. Flying back home, Anaya leaned against Julian's shoulder, exhausted but exhilarated. He wrapped his arm around her and signed with his free hand, "You're changing the world, you know that? I'm just creating space for people who've been overlooked. That's changing the world." Back home, life continued its busy pace. The original center hosted a summer exhibition featuring work from all their students. The opening was packed, with over 500 people attending. Local news covered it, praising the center's impact on the community. During the exhibition, Anaya stood in the gallery surrounded by art, surrounded by people, surrounded by everything she'd built. Julian found her there and pulled her close. "I have something to ask you," he signed. "And before you answer, I want you to know there's no pressure. If you're not ready, that's completely okay." Anaya's heart began to race. She had a feeling she knew what was coming. Julian took both her hands and signed, "I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You've made me better, braver, more purposeful. When I wake up in the morning, my first thought is of you. When something good happens, you're who I want to tell. When things are hard, you're who I want beside me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Opening it revealed a simple, elegant ring, a single diamond set in platinum. "Will you marry me?" Julian signed with his free hand. "Will you build a life with me, officially and forever?" Anaya felt tears streaming down her face. She looked at the ring, at Julian's hopeful expression, at the gallery full of art and people and possibilities. This was her life now. This was her future. She signed, "Yes. Absolutely yes." Julian slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, right there in the gallery with everyone watching. The crowd erupted in applause, both hearing and deaf guests celebrating this moment. Vanessa appeared beside them, grinning widely. "Finally. I was wondering how long he was going to wait." "You knew." Anaya signed. "Of course I knew. He asked for my blessing weeks ago. And our parents. And basically everyone who knows you both." Vanessa hugged her. "Welcome to the family, officially and for real this time." The rest of the evening was a blur of congratulations and celebration. Julian's parents were there, beaming with happiness. Teresa was crying happy tears. Even Michelle from work had come and was signing her excitement. Later that night, back at Julian's apartment, Anaya and Julian sat on his couch, her hand resting on his chest so she could feel his heartbeat. "I can't believe this is my life," she signed. "A year ago I was alone, struggling, invisible. Now I'm engaged, running a foundation, surrounded by people who support me." "You were never invisible," Julian signed. "You just weren't being seen by the right people. But your light was always there, waiting to be recognized. You saw me. That first night, even with all the chaos, you saw me. I did. And I've never stopped seeing you, all of you, exactly as you are. They talked late into the night about their future. They wanted a small wedding, maybe in the fall, with just close friends and family. They'd keep living separately until after the wedding, honoring traditional patterns but on their own timeline. They talked about children someday, about building a life that balanced their work and their relationship. We still have to finish the second center, Anaya signed. And there are inquiries from 3 other cities about additional locations. This foundation is going to grow fast. Are you ready for that? I am. Especially now that I know I have you beside me, supporting me but not overshadowing me. That's the only way I know how to love you. As your partner, your equal, your biggest supporter. The summer passed in a happy blur. They set a wedding date for October, keeping the planning simple and intimate. The Second Hope Community Arts Center began construction ahead of schedule. Anaya hired additional staff for the foundation and started developing a framework that could be replicated in any city. In August, something unexpected happened. Brad Collins reached out through his lawyer, requesting a meeting. Julian's immediate reaction was to refuse, but Anaya surprised herself by agreeing. I want to hear what he has to say, she signed. If he's genuinely trying to apologize, I want to hear it. And if he's not, I want to face him and prove to myself that he has no power over me anymore. The meeting took place in Julian's lawyer's office. Brad looked different than Anaya remembered, thinner, tired, older. He'd clearly had a difficult year. He spoke while a sign language interpreter translated. I wanted to apologize. Genuinely apologize, not the fake stuff from before. What I did was cruel and unforgivable. I was jealous and petty, and I took it out on you in the worst possible way. Anaya watched him carefully, looking for signs of insincerity. All she saw was genuine regret. Brad continued, I lost my job, my reputation, most of my friends. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I thought hurting someone else would make me feel better about myself. I know I can't undo what I did, but I wanted you to know I'm genuinely sorry. And that I'm working to become a better person. Julian started to speak, but Anaya stopped him. She signed, and the interpreter voiced, I appreciate your apology. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I appreciate that you're trying to change. What you did hurt me deeply, but it also led to changes in my life that have been overwhelmingly positive. I hope you find whatever you're looking for in your healing. Brad nodded. That's more than I deserve. Thank you for hearing me out. After he left, Julian turned to Anaya. Are you okay? I am. Surprisingly so. He can't hurt me anymore. That prank, that cruelty, it's just history now. Something that happened to a different version of me. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just someone who chose hope over bitterness. That's all. October arrived with perfect autumn weather. The wedding was held in the original Hope Community Arts Center's gallery, surrounded by art and love and community. Only 50 people attended, but each one was meaningful. Anaya wore a bright blue dress, simple and elegant. Julian wore a maroon suit, breaking from traditional black. They exchanged vows in both ASL and spoken English, promising to support each other, respect each other, and build a life together based on love and equality. Vanessa signed a reading about love and partnership. Julian's parents gave a blessing. Teresa gave a speech about how she'd watched Anaya bloom over the past year, how love and support had transformed her. When Julian and Anaya kissed as newly married partners, the room erupted in celebration. The reception was casual and joyful, full of dancing and laughter and hope. As the evening wound down, Anaya and Julian stood in the center's gallery, looking at their wedding photos displayed on the walls. Gabriella had insisted on creating an impromptu exhibition. Your love story deserves to be celebrated. Can you believe this is real? Anaya signed. I can. Because we built it together, piece by piece, choice by choice. Julian pulled her close. We chose to see good in a bad situation. We chose to support each other. We chose hope over fear. And look what we created. They looked around at the gallery, at the center that had grown from a dream, at the foundation that would create even more centers. They looked at their friends and family celebrating around them. They looked at each other, seeing partnership and love and infinite possibility. Thank you, Anaya signed. For seeing me that first night. For standing with me through everything. For loving me exactly as I am. Thank you for giving me the chance to prove I was worth your trust. For building this life with me. For being brave enough to dream big and work hard and accept help when it was offered. They kissed again, and Anaya felt complete happiness wash over her. This was her life now. Wife, founder, designer, teacher, dreamer. And it all started with a cruel prank that had accidentally brought her the greatest gift: Julian's love and partnership. As they left the reception, headed for a brief honeymoon before diving back into work, Anaya looked back at the center one more time. The building was lit from within, glowing in the darkness, a beacon of hope and creativity. "We did good," she signed to Julian. "We did. And we're just getting started." They drove away into their future, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Because together, with kindness, hope, and love leading the way, they could face anything.